February 8th, 2024 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. In order to call this meeting together, we have a few administrative items we have to walk through. We do not, to my understanding, Daniel, have any remote board members participants. So the only item we need to take care of before we go to our statement of purpose is public comment time limitations. So for the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will have to be able to speak during public comment periods. The public is allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item as is standard ARB practice. Look to a member to provide a motion regarding that. Ms. Murray.
I move that each member of the public have 3 minutes to speak.
The motion, is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Motion carries. All right. In addition to other housekeeping, this meeting is going to be recorded, and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. Lastly, we start off all of our meetings with a reading of the Statement of Purpose and Intent of Historic Overlay Districts. And Mr. Burns has graciously accepted my request that he do so.
Statement of Purpose and Intent of the Historic Overlay Districts. Historic Overlay Districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All right. So the order in which items will be heard will be set at the meeting, following the subsequent approval of the agenda. Additional items can be added at the discretion of the chair. For applicants coming up for an application for action, we would ask that if it is initial presentation, that you keep yourself to roughly about 8 minutes, and for follow-up presentations, we'd ask that you keep yourself to roughly about 3 minutes, focusing specifically on what changes have been made since the requisite workshop or prior presentation. In addition to that, I don't think I have any other notes. Daniel, anything else to point out before we go into our motions? All right. I bought Ms. Mangum just enough time there. So now we can move to approval of the agenda. So we have an agenda proposed with 3 action items and 3 items for workshop. I would entertain a motion to approve it as submitted or to modify it. Yes, Daniel.
There were 2 revisions today. The presenter for action item 3 is different, and there was an update under the approval of the previous month's minutes because that date was incorrect.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as revised by staff today. Motion made by Mr. Ali.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as revised by staff today.
Sir, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Murray. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any opposition? All right, motion carries. The agenda is approved as provided today. All right, that takes us on to our agenda. First and foremost, introduction and recognition of guests. Daniel, do you have any guests or anyone that needs to be introduced other than applicants?
This is the first time that we've had Mr. Sohong Purwala and Ms. Mangum at the same meeting. They're meeting each other for the first time.
That's true.
Almost had a full 11, but you could not make it. So
it's excellent. We also have a full board at this time, and hopefully all of us remain healthy. So we have a full board at this time. All right, excellent. There are no consent calendar items for action, so that takes us immediately on to our items for action. The first and foremost is ARB 24. I forgot. I need to give you a chance. This is just the Holland Hills line up here.
Yes.
So before we jump into all those items for action, Mr. Burns, you have a statement you need to read. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD and specifically state the following for the February 8th, 2024 ARB meeting. 1. Action items ARB 24-HOL-04, 7302 Ripon Road Edition, ARB 24-HOL-05, 1901 Paul Spring Road Edition, and ARB 24-HOL-03, 7200 Rebecca Drive Edition, involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 2, the nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOD. 3, I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction. And 4, I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that brings us on to our first item of action, ARB 24-HOL-04, 7302 Ripon Road Addition. This is in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for an addition being proposed, a kitchen addition and interior renovations. Ms. Christine Kelly represents the application. Ms. Kelly, as always, good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you. I'd like to take you through the presentation quickly, and I can point out the changes that were made based on the previous presentation. May I have the next slide, please? This is just showing you where the house is located, right near the entry of Holland Hills. And to run through the location of the kitchen addition is just off to the left of the existing house. And showing you some of the existing photos. Keep going through them. I'd like to point out in this photo, there's this existing retaining wall, which will be, we'll be saving that. This one in the previous plan we were saving, but right now we'd like to take it down, and I'll explain more as we get to the drawings. This is where the addition is going right here. And this is the existing floor plan, lower level, and just another shot of this wall will be coming down. The existing upper level. And then this is where the new addition will be going right here. And we have a new retaining wall going out to retain the patio. The previous retaining wall we were looking at was right here. So instead of having 2 retaining walls, we're using one new one to retain the earth. And the new lower level, which is a crawl space. And going through the elevations, the front elevation, this is the kitchen addition out to the side. And in the previous design, I had a different window configuration, and the board suggested 3 equal windows, which we changed it to, and also the pitch of the roof was changed to match the existing house. And we're reusing an existing door that is original to the house. That was another change from the previous submission. There were no changes on this side. Keep going. Next slide. And that's the summary of the changes that were made since the last. Can we go back to the elevations, please? Going. One more. And then one more again. This is the new retaining wall that we're adding to retain the patio, and the whole house is painted right now, and we'd like it to be a block and parged because it will be painted. And that was a change from the last submission. We had the original brick retaining wall in front of it. And that's everything. That was the change from the original submission.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Kelly. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item up for consideration? Be a new experience. Just get my stretches in. Not seeing any. I would look to members of the board if they have any comments or questions for Ms. Kelly. Yes, Ms. Hammack.
2, I think it's all the drawings, but I don't have it on my computer yet. What material is the picket railing on top of the retaining wall?
It will be metal.
Oh, okay. And the parge it's going to be like stuccoed CMU.
Mhm.
Will it be smooth finish or rusticated?
Yes, it will be a smooth finish.
That's kind of rusticated one.
Okay. Any other comments and or questions from board members? Well, I'll say I appreciate the changes to the windows over the new kitchen space and the realignment. I think it looks a lot better
Mhm.
aesthetically, as well as kind of, it doesn't create I think it was too busy is what we went at last time. So I really appreciate that. And I think also the retaining wall change is actually a one for the better in the long run. I think that looks a lot cleaner than the tiers that I think you were planning originally. That's all I had. Were there any other comments from any other members? If not, I would entertain a motion. Sure. Oh, Mr. Zelman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move the ARB approve action item ARB 24 HOL 04 located at 7302 Ripon Road, Alexandria, tax map 0934050016 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed construction of an addition is submitted and presented at the February 8th, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Kelly. We'll see you again in just a little bit, I think. All right, that takes us to our second item for action, ARB 24 HOL 05 1901 Paul Springs Road Studio Addition. This is also in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing an addition to an existing accessory building. Mr. Williams represents the application.
Yes, thank you.
Out of this. One of these.
Thank you. This is my first time presenting an application like this to you. So the presentation that I provided here doesn't replicate what's in the plan set, but it does provide some extra background information on the application that I think can help the committee members. So next slide. So the studio in the property is an accessory building in the historic district. The proposed additions would add a net of 100 square feet, roughly, of internal space, whilst preserving the original structure. The building is used as a studio and as a shed, and those uses are continued. There's no plumbing in the structure. The design, we had a previous workshop session back in 2022, and some of that, the feedback that I got from you at that time is incorporated into this design. So this design was also submitted to the Holland Hills Design Review Committee and was approved in January 2024. So this is a photograph of the existing structure. It stands in the rear yard of a lot. It was built as a workshop contemporary with the house. It's a frame construction on a concrete slab. It has one brick wall. And at some point in the ensuing 60 years, a small sort of shed addition was built alongside it. Next slide. This slide illustrates where the building is relative to the main residence. So it stands at the back of the lot. Typically, it's not visible from the street if you're standing in front of the house. And the additions marked in yellow at the back of on this plat show where the studio would be expanded. I've also marked in pink the setback for accessory buildings. This shows the existing elevation. It's a mixture of construction at this point. The side little shed thing is faced in T111 siding. The main building with the original structure has 6-inch vertically mounted shiplap and also sort of plywood panels enclosed in a sort of the typical Holland Hills 2x4, 2x6 frame enclosing glass and those painted plywood panels. So the next slide shows the proposed changes to this main elevation, which is to sort of raise the existing shed to the full height to extend use of the main studio and to add a shed alongside, both of which are lower and sort of set back from the main building to preserve and sort of emphasize the existing structure. Again, design and materials consistent with existing structure, sort of panels framed of plywood construction. Next slide. This is an illustration of how the addition would be set back from the existing structure. There's a sort of photograph of what it looks like now and the same angle in the model. Next slide. From the backside view, it really doesn't, again, it's sort of set back from the main structure, so it doesn't really, it's not really that visible from this side. Next slide. This is an illustration of the back of the house and the studio viewed from the southern boundary of the property. So it sort of shows what that shed looks like today and what it would, what the proposal would add to that. This is an illustration where I've sort of shopped in the studio into the into a photograph of the house from the right-of-way. This area between the right-of-way and it's about 60 feet. It was recently replanted. It was replanted in 2022. It looks a bit more vivid since the illustration is kind of oblique, but it's already, most of what you see marked there is already there. Yep. Next one. So then, in conclusion, you know, the addition that I'm proposing, it would add to the utility of the existing accessory building by allowing me to sort of store some of my tools that I keep outside in a shed. I hope it will improve the appearance of the property and the landscape. It doesn't require any significant alteration to the original studio building. And it's fairly modest in size. It's subservient to the house, uses color and scale to differentiate the existing from the proposed addition. And it employs design language that are consistent with what's found in the existing. And it complies with the relevant zoning requirements vis-a-vis setback and size. So thank you. That's all I had on this presentation.
All right. Thank you very much. If there is any member of the public that wishes to comment on this application. I'm not seeing any members of the public that want to comment, so I would look to any members of the board that have comments and or questions for the applicant. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I wish everyone paid as much attention to the small details as you have. It's a modest project, but it's very carefully thought out and respectful of not just the original house, but of the shed by the original house. So thank you for doing that. Also appreciate the clarity of your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Yes, Mr. Palmby.
Yeah, I was going to say, ditto to what Mr. Burns said too as well. I had a real quick question. The existing retaining wall, do you have to rebuild the retaining wall for grade purposes or anything like that? Because it's like your addition would.
There is
What's your site plan, anyways?
I mean, there is an existing landscape wall here that the addition would sit within that.
That would sit within. Okay, because your site plan is older, I guess, because the site right now the new addition cuts through a retaining wall, but that's not reality. That's
not reality.
Okay. No further question.
Okay. I agree. Thank you for the very concise and clear presentation, even the changes you did, and the information on the setback, which is a common challenge in Holland Hills. Having that clarity of information is very helpful. So if there are no other comments by any board members, I would entertain a motion. Unless, Rachel, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Burns.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB-24-HOL-05, located at 1901 Paul Spring Road, Alexandria, tax map 093304, lot 34, and Holland Hills HOD for the proposed construction of an addition to the existing accessory building as submitted and presented at the February 8th, 2024 ARB meeting. On review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, with motions, there a second. Seconded by Mr. Plumpy. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. All right. That brings us on to our third item for action, ARB 24-HOL03, 7200 Rebecca Drive addition. This is also in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing a primary bathroom and closet addition and interior renovations. Ms. Kelly represents the application. Welcome back, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. This is and I'm sorry the plat is, I could not get this on the presentation. This is Rebecca Drive, the existing house, and the new addition is a bathroom and closet addition off to the left side. And the owners of the property are Peter and Lee Braun, and they're out of the country for a family wedding, so I'm stepping in to help them with the presentation this evening. These are photos of the existing house. This is, can we go back one? This is an existing structure that the house has fallen into disrepair and the county condemned the structure. I helped Peter and Lee do drawings to submit to the county so that it could be strengthened and rebuilt, but it is staying in this exact configuration. The next slide, please. These are taking you around the existing house to show you the condition of the house. And that's from the back. This the addition. The bathroom addition will be going right here. And a few other shots of that same side. The addition will be right here. This is the existing glass windows in the kitchen, and the addition will be back off to the corner back here. And two views from the front. Here you can see that they've stripped down the structure in order to rebuild it, and the new addition will be going right here. This is the view from the street. These are the existing floor plans. This is the structure that's being rebuilt. There is a little existing deck. We'll take that down. On the next slide, please. Shows the new bathroom and closet addition at the back. And the elevations, there is a new railing and deck where you can, in front of the new addition. And the siding is a tongue and groove wood siding. They're not quite sure what type of wood it is, but the wood will, on the new addition, will match the house. And on the back, they have made a mistake on the elevation. Right now, on the back, there is an awning window below that rail will be retained, and the egress window will be in the panel above. So this is not shown correctly, but they will be retaining the original window configuration. The next slide, please. And these are the structural drawings. And the next slide, the more structural drawings. They're, I didn't come for a workshop because they are in a hurry to get to work on the house, and wanted to present the entire picture to you this evening. And they will be using Anderson 400 windows and replacing the single pane glass with insulated glazing. These are the drawings that were submitted to the county to rebuild the little trellis structure and stair structure that were on the right side of the house. That's everything. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kelly. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this side? All right, I'm not seeing any. So I would turn to members of the ARB for comments, questions that they might have on this item per application. Ms. Hammack.
I wish the owners were here because it'd be great to say that this is a great project and really impressive that they're taking it on. It's a true preservation project with the exception of the addition, which I think is fine and modest and well done. I would love to to see photographs of the completed project, if that's something you could share with staff. My concern is, was there a structural report done when it changed hands? I'm just worried that when you get into this building, more is going to have to come down than initially thought. Sometimes when there's delayed maintenance, which looks like there's been delayed maintenance. Anyway, that's something that,
I don't know that they did, but I did, in walking the house with them, I know that they are doing some repairs on some of the masonry walls in the basement to set them properly.
Okay.
So I know that they are in there working with engineers to make sure everything hasn't deteriorated. And if it has, then it can be,
I mean, it has deteriorated, whether it can be saved or if it needs to come down in entirety. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's wonderful that this is happening to this building.
they've done other beautiful projects in Holland.
Oh, okay, then they're what it's like.
Mr. Palumbi?
Yes, I just want to pick up with the last thing you just said, but I just wanted to ask you a real quick question regarding that last company. You said, so do they live in this house or they flip this house?
They are going to flip the house. They live in the Alcoa house. They bought the Alcoa house and restored that. So they're invested in the community.
Okay, gotcha. That's good. So, and John, they take it, you know, these people.
Yeah, I know.
But my comments are these is,
Maybe that's why they're out of town.
the comments are these is the one photograph you have, at least in the presentation we have, it's the one that we received prior to is 15 of 24, which shows the roof line, all those vents. And I don't know if that's typical, that's, you know, standard operating procedure to go to the, here, this one. You're on a hill or something.
You're looking back to all the bedrooms.
Like
Yeah, so
You can see,
those air, I'm assuming that they're air vents of some sort to get fresh air in or something like that.
Yes.
Are they,
it's a ceiling fan.
Yes.
well, there's a whole bunch. You got like 20, like 10 on there. Is that typical? I mean, you know, see a chicken coop up in the Midwest, it's like a chicken coop.
It's hard to rent the flat roofs as well, but
So is that going to be altered? I mean, is that going to be cleaned up or not? And where's this view taken from? Your neighbor's view?
actually it's taken on their lot. The lot slopes up.
I got you.
So it's taken at the back of the lot.
Is there an opportunity to kind of clean it up unless that's period, unless it's supposed to be that way? You know, I don't know.
I can ask them if they can clean it up.
She said maybe it doesn't meet code, but I'm just thinking from aesthetics. I'm not the code person here. I'm the landscape architect. The other question is I know you'll be disturbing more than 2,500 square feet, I assume, to do this work, right? For grading and the addition and so forth, or not?
I don't believe they will.
Okay, so you will not need a grading permit or a submerged control plan or anything like that, because that was my next question. And if you're not putting any new pavement down or anything like that, then I have nothing else to say, because I was going to say come back in with a site plan of some sort to show what grading you're doing and any kind of other items that would trigger that 2,500 square feet plus disturbance plan.
We won't be disturbing more than 2,500 square feet.
So no grading going on, you're just adding addition or footings and call it a day. And no new driveway or anything like that.
No.
Okay. It's not an interrogation, just asking.
They're uncovering the driveway. There is a driveway there.
Okay, thank you so much. I know this looks like the Supreme Court today, but it's. So,
I'm not done looking.
okay, thank you so much for your answers.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, a couple questions. Could you go to the photograph that shows where the deck will come closest to the facade? Yeah, I think you had 3 photos on that particular one.
Next slide, please. Next, I'm sorry, the other way. Keep going. And another one.
There.
Right. Yes, the deck is going back in this location right here.
Right, and so that retaining wall is going to stay?
Yes.
Okay, and the fan coil for the HVAC, will that stay or you
That will need to be relocated.
will be really, okay. And then, so the end of the deck, right, is going to be how far back on that center photograph?
Can we go back to the
Does-
floor plan, please?
Yeah, I don't have the floor plan in front of me, but
The next one, this is existing. So it's coming back to,
Back to where the door is?
yes,
Okay, so you're going to have three, the big windows, right, okay,
Yes.
okay, all right. Then what will be under, because that's back from the retaining.
right, so
So
it's,
what's going to be under that? Is it just like,
there isn't anything under there right now. But
well, there will be leaves and debris and over time? Okay, all right, just this, that's something that the owners will have to address.
yes.
The only thing that really concerned me about this was the drawing in the drawing set. It was D2 that showed the rail,
Mhm.
guardrail, and it appears to be 2x2 wood pickets. Is that indeed the case?
They would like to, that was one other drafting area. They would like to make it a cable rail to match what was on the trellis side of the house. So if you accept that, they will, I know that's what they would prefer to install.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask about.
I always have to go last, John. You took the one thing I was like, he hasn't mentioned it. I think one great thing that he's going to miss. You answered that. I was going to say, so that would obviously for any of us, that's going to need to be a condition we make sure we place on. And if this goes to approval, that change has to be incorporated. Obviously as well as I think you mentioned that the applicant is they're going to maintain the window configuration as you mentioned. So that's another thing that we will have to make sure if this is approved is conditioned on it. So it's clear we're approving it with those variations. Any other member of the ARB that has a comment on this item? Because that was my comment. I was concerned about the railing and everything. It just looked so out of place. Considering the style we like to see. And again, I agree with Ms. Hammock in particular. I'm happy to see this. That's great to see an improvement on a house that meets it in the district. Well, if there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion, hopefully with some requisite conditions placed on it.
Modifications.
With
Modifications.
modifications, I'm sorry, with subject modification.
I'll give it a crack.
We do say the conditions so long, Sean, come on. But yes, by all means, Mr. Burns, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24HOL03, located at 7200 Rebecca Drive, Alexandria, tax map 09330907, lot 22, and the Holland Hills Overlay District for the proposed addition as submitted and presented at the February 8th, 2024 ARB meeting, subject to the following modifications. One, that the railing on the new deck will be a cable railing, not wood pickets. And the second thing is that the reconstruction of the original porch structure be the same configuration as it had been historically. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you so much.
All right, that takes us out of our items for action and brings us into our items for workshop session. Similar to the items for action, though, I remind applicants to try to keep your presentation. This is the first presentation to roughly 8 minutes, so that we have time to discuss. And if it's a renewed presentation, focus on the changes that have come since then. So our first item up is ARB 24 LOR 03WS 9519 Workhouse Way Solar Arc Project. This is in the Laurel Hill MOA eligible area. And the applicant is proposing to install solar arc panels. This was last before us as a workshop session in May of 2023.
Yes, hi, I'm Adam Windsor. I'm the founder of Oslo Decorative Solar. It's a startup here in Fairfax County, and I'm working with the Department of Economic Initiatives with a small grant doing an artistic installation at the Workhouse Art Center. Just an example of what I work on in the company. It's applying artistic principles to the design of functional solar panels, so they can be a pleasant thing to have in your environment instead of something that's not. Anyway, go ahead. Here's a picture of one of the solar panels that I'm proposing to put into the project. I don't think I had a picture last time. It's just pointing out where the Workhouse Art Center is in the Lorton Historic District. I think you're familiar with that. And here's the campus. We have reduced the number of sites we're looking at to number one is a corner near the Workhouse Road entrance. It's slated for future development, but there's nothing currently scheduled to be there. And the project that we're hoping to install is a temporary one. I think we're planning about 3 years, so it should be out of the way by the time any development goes there. There's also a picnic area near the power station at the, well, it's the top of this picture. And that would be another place that's would be thematically appropriate for it. Go ahead. So last time we submitted a design that was, very callback to the historic architecture of the site, and the board asked for something more contemporary to show that it was, a new and artistic placement. So come up with an idea for, it's basically a wall. It's the siding is shoshugiban or yakisugi. It's a fire-preserved wood paneling. And then it would have edge-lit LED light bars on either side, which would be powered by the system. And then would have the 3 artistic solar panels in a triptych there in the center. And this is a rough design. We haven't nailed down the fine details of it because we wanted to get feedback from the board here to see if this was a direction we should take. You can go to the next. Or sorry, actually, can you go back to the first one? So this is a site photograph of the first site. It's near the Workhouse Road entrance. In this photograph, the art center would be to the left and behind you. The entrance is there behind, just visible, and then this is towards the edge of the site. The 2 different options in the first picture, it would be facing directly towards the art house, Workhouse Art Center, which is direct south facing, which is the preferred orientation for solar panels. But this is another option where we could have it turn 90 degrees, have solar panels actually on both sides, so that it would be a mirror image of each other, and then we'd get east morning light in the morning on the east side and evening light on the west side. And it would be a little bit better visible from the entryway, but not from the workhouse itself. So it's 2 different options for orientation. Go ahead. Here's a picture of up near the power station, W29. This is also viewed in the south-facing orientation. And for this site, there's an option of including some weathered steel in the finish of the structure, the supporting structure. And I like that thematically because the weathered steel and the carbon from the charred wood very thematic to the coal-powered plant that's next to it, but now being used in a renewable structural way to produce clean energy instead of burning fossil fuel. The next one. Here's just some drawings to show the scale. It would be about 10 feet tall, and then 2 to 3 feet wide at the base and tapered towards the top. Go ahead to the next one. And probably about 16 feet wide. The side lit light bars could have several different variations. That's something we'd finalize when we came in for the approval. And they could shine in white light, or if you go to the next slide, the same lights could be programmable with colored LEDs, which could be have patterns or be changed for events or special occasions. And go to the next one. I think that's where we've come to right now, and I'd love to hear any questions or comments.
All right, thank you very much. Not all of us didn't like the traditional approach you took last time, so I found myself in an extreme minority by the time the meeting was over. So
When did we see this?
this is before your time, but the prior design was a kind of a motif on a window that was then described to me as looking more like creating portable toilets across the campus. So
That comment stuck with us.
another dramatic comment. What
It is hard to present your artwork.
it is.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic. I thought it was great, but I was clearly outvoted by, But anyways, thank you for coming back to us. Oh, sorry, Ms. Hammer.
Question, I mean, you've answered the thing, but,
Yeah.
so are these easy for someone to damage? Like if someone walked up with a hammer to graffiti, to like vandalize things, how, is that easy? That's that was my number one concern.
So yes, they are made of glass. They're not, they're fairly tough. It's I don't know if it's technically tempered glass, but it's made to withstand, a hailstorm. Yes, if somebody came up with a hammer or struck a brick at it, they'd be.
And then with the glass, it's the type of glass that cuts you. It's not like getting in a car accident.
Phil.
That's the.
Fairly certain solar paneling is tempered.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think
It is
this
like a
particular,
glass.
the front, it's actually 2 layers of glass with the solar sandwich in between, and it is a laminated. So the
Okay, so
the center
yeah.
layer is a thermoplastic, and so when it breaks, it stays together.
Okay,
Aside from maybe a little bit of
and then
light spalling.
these are very reversible. You just pick it up and take it away, which I think is great. I think your materials do relate to the narrative of the site, which is exciting. I think very big. Were they this big in May?
No.
No. I don't understand why they need to be, like the photo, the one rendering with the building behind and the picnic table, I thought was really illustrated very well. I think it was really helpful. Now I wish there was a person in this, because when I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, the incinerator. And then with the person, I was like, oh no, these are really big.
Yeah, so a person standing would probably come up to about here.
Average person is about 5'2".
5'9".
Yeah. Oh no, the average person is not 5'9", but
That's what my doctor tells me every time.
that's trying to be nice.
So the solar panels themselves are, shorter. I raised them up a little bit and gave, a frame around.
Yeah.
It could be made smaller. We can make that frame a little bit narrower. We could bring them down lower. I wanted to give them some space from the ground, so lawnmowers and stuff can just come in around and not have to worry about the glass.
Is there a maximum goal, like we want this much energy captured by this, like is the size driven by an energy goal?
So it's, yes. So with the battery, so this is a functional solar installation. It's off-grid. Inside the wall structure, there will be a battery pack with charger and monitoring equipment. And for those power electronics, we want to use 3 solar panels wired together would be the optimum setup for keeping that battery charged to be able to have the lights shine.
And then you're placing them on the site in areas that are going to receive the best angle
Yes, so our primary application is all south facing, which is the best angle for.
I think in us area.
Do you
not-
have these installed anywhere else? You could show us a photo of where, or is this like, this is the beta first?
No, yeah, this is the first pilot project
Okay.
for the company. I do have some actually installed in my backyard.
That would be, that would be.
But they're on a canopy. They're not vertically faced like this, so you couldn't see them as well. But if you go back, so I haven't installed them on a bespoke structure like this before. Keep going back to the photograph of the single solar panel.
Is that up?
No, back. Yeah, back. Back. No, it's the very
Wrong way.
near the very beginning of the there.
Oh, yeah.
So this is one of the solar panels, and it's tipped on its side. So we're proposing a vertical orientation with 3 of these next to each other. But you can see this panel only comes about this much further down, and it's symmetrical along this line. So that's an actual photograph of one of the panels in the sun.
I have 2 more questions and I'll be quiet. The light that you're proposing,
Mhm.
how, is it going to be enough light to light the ground in front, or is, that's what I'm trying to understand. Is it almost like
Yeah. So actually, if you go
walking on the path would get ambient lighting, or?
yeah, so I'll actually go right back to the one with the picnic table and the power plant. We would need to get the light in the place to see how much it lit up. But my understanding is that it would create a a visible little glow within probably 5 to 10 feet of the installation.
And the other question is there any interpretation or signage so the average person would know what this is?
I would love to include that. I had some information that we would need additional approvals to have any signage. And so we
I was
didn't
thinking
include
like,
that in
just
this.
like a little plaque.
Yeah, I would love to have a little plaque explaining, it's artwork, it's at Art Center. And, it's also a functional solar installation, so I'd love to explain that too and have a little educational element. And that could go, on a separate post. It could go on the side. There are several different ways we could go with that. And
Sure. Thank you for answering.
And the size of the panels,
True.
I mean, these are what, 3,000 watts each or?
they are 300 watts each. So it's about a 900.
1,000 watts.
Yeah.
You need that much power for the LED lights that you're going to put around it or?
Well, it's to charge, a large battery pack, which then will run the lights at night when the panels aren't shining. It is overpowered.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it would probably last you a couple of days if you didn't even have sunlight based on those 3 panels if you're just running LED lights, right? You might have, 200 watts or something like that in LEDs?
Well, there is an option to possibly run other things. For instance, we were thinking of putting actually possibly a motion detector so the lights aren't on all the time, but that draws continuous power. It is a little bit over powered, so in the summer it would be, the battery, once it's full, shuts off. So it doesn't cause any damage. But then in the winter, when the days are short, the sun is lower. We're trying to size it for that period so that it can work even in the dead of winter. It'll be a little oversized during the summer. Also, these are prototype solar panels. They're made by a commercial company that makes solar panels. But since it's a new design, it's not, what's that?
200 wattage output.
Yeah, it's not certified. So we wanted to kind of keep it under, its maximum draw because of that.
Mr. Plumping.
Yes, hi.
Wait.
I'm on the board of the Workhouse, okay?
Oh, excellent.
And I've seen you before there. Has this been presented to the board or to the person in charge? You know, where these are going? Or is this your first time before, like, you can go here first and then back to them?
Yeah, so we developed the initial proposals with Marvin when he was the CEO, and then he resigned a few months ago.
Yeah.
And we have talked to the new interim CEO.
So you have or have not?
We have.
Okay, good deal.
So she's aware of the project. She's also very busy, so she hasn't been as involved
Gotcha.
as Marvin was. But
His name is Leon.
Leon. Okay.
Marvin, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Marvin Windows, Marvin's.
Oh, yeah, it's been a few months.
Anyways, a couple observations, and where they're located, no one to really take advantage of them because right now we're number one is that's your entrance into the project. There's an entrance sign that was newly built, approved by us, that is built now that says the Lord Workhouse, blah blah blah. And
Right.
so that is like where it is on this.
So
You got it, exactly.
Yeah, so the entryway sign is here, and then it's around the corner.
Got it. So you're driving in there and, it's a quick buy, but if you're in this to sell your solar panels or to say, hey, this is what we should be doing in the future, I think it needs to be relocated. I'm going to get into that shortly.
Okay.
Number two, your first name?
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle said the key thing I saw with item number two, space number two, is that it's going to get vandalized. Back there, is a DMZ zone. I don't think I'd put this here. This would be shattered with a ball bat, sledgehammer within a month. I guarantee you.
Mhm.
Because they already break the windows on the existing auditorium there that's there now with stones and bottles and stuff. So to me, number two definitely is a non-starter. Number one, I have concerns. Now, since maybe you've been to the site, which it sounds you have, but since you presented first, under construction right in front of the site where it says bike rack on that plan, that's a new outdoor seating area and so forth, okay, and everything. That is stormwater management facility and everything. I would strongly recommend you looking at that. This gets great sun and everything. And as a landscape architect, we use solar panels sometimes to power USB ports and so forth for people's phones because there's a lot of tables in there and so forth. There's actually picnic tables that have solar panels incorporated onto the surfaces, which is kind of cool. But you're not going to do that because you're trying to present something that is different. My strong recommendation is go back to the drawing board. Don't mean to drag this out until 2030, but I think look at the location and I think there's areas that this could be incorporated into that. Maybe it's a slightly different design. It gets plenty of sun, but have this exposed to people to enjoy it and to do it. Does it have to light up? Yeah, it's kind of cool at night because they'll have outdoor lighting. They have string lights across the space now. It's going to be operational with a lot of people, a lot of beer, and they see a lot of lights, and it's kind of cool. So I think the thing that I would recommend is look at that, see where you can put this, and maybe the design of it slightly changed. Or it could be the same thing, but it's off to the side, but have the cables rigged up underground into some picnic tables or seating areas that are not movable, or even along the handrail. There's a handrail there that people can plug in their phones or something. So it's a usable charging station as opposed to, hey, cool lights, yeah, it's okay, no big deal. But I think also, it is an art place, so I have no problem. It could be a more funkier background, in my opinion. I do like the materials you selected. I love the corten steel and the flame wood. I think it's cool. I just think it is a little bit imposing, as you mentioned. It is 10 feet tall and so forth. So hey, you can always put them horizontally. Maybe it's a longer expression. I think take a look at that. I think first of all, I would not approve this where it was located. I think I'm look at it. Its use for it. So really make it usable. I mean, my first thing says, hey, is there enough power in this to charge an electric car? Here's my charging station. Probably not. Okay, you probably need about 600 of those panels. Okay, for fast charging. So I'm thinking make it usable so that the public knows what the heck it is. The Bunny Brewery is opened up in May, I believe, finally. And first of all, the inaugural bottle of beer there. So in any event, I think it'd be good to have that and exploit what you've done so you can get business so you're successful, but also say, hey, people, hey, this is the right thing we should be doing here. And it may force, but it may, for the board of the workhouse, because I know they're looking at doing solar panels on roofs here, and that's kind of a non-starter. So maybe there's other ways to do this that would work out that is more artistically done. Maybe put them in dormer windows as you liked before. But in any event, I think it would be interesting to make this more than just a temporary thing. I'd love to see it permanently somehow there in the future, but this is a temporary for your installation. You got a new venue now. I think you need to study that a little bit and say, hey, where can I incorporate that into that new venue? There is a stormwater management facility, which you can't disturb, but maybe it's beside it, maybe it's off to the side, or maybe it's incorporated into the handrail temporarily. There's a cable handrail that's there. That could be challenging because you're going to see the backside of this thing. I really think if you have that same similar type element there, I think a description of a interpretive plaque that talks about what's the guts of this thing is. I mean, there's a lot of geeks out there. Okay. Yeah. So they say, hey, how's this thing work, dude? This is cool. And I think that's what I would propose you is make it, exploit it, and be successful.
Okay, I appreciate that. I actually have a horizontal and longer.
I think the horizontal is going to be more accepting. I think that long thing is not the
You
little
don't want to
imposing.
sit on it.
On Joe's question about, was there something that's driving you to pick those two locations? Was the county, was there other forces saying that you're constrained?
I would love to have a more central location. Last time, one of the areas we proposed was in the quad, and we got feedback from, I think, the workhouse board that was a non-starter, and so we removed that one. But I would love to do something more central. We also originally were hoping to have like USB chargers and stuff, and got some negative feedback from that. But that's stuff I would love to.
Take my card. Seriously, show the shorter board member, and I'd be love to meet up with the new chairs. I know.
Okay.
So just set a meeting. I'll be there. I live 7 miles from here.
Is that your ARB card, Joe?
No, I don't have yet. I was going to Xerox and cut them out.
Okay. So what I was going to say is I agree that location. Joe's makes some really good points about, one, that I agree the concern about safety for something getting ruined and something like that. But if there are, particularly with the Bunnyman Brewery coming in, there's a space where there will be people. And when you came last time, that was part of the allure, I thought, of the original design, which wasn't in dormers, but was taken out of the theme of the dormers. And they were going to be in the quad, but the idea was people would see it and be like, hey, what's that? That's interesting. And it would draw some attention to this more artistic form of solar.
And just to add to that is we have artists there. So I just popped in, you got LED lighting. It can be backlighting a panel that the artist creates as an artwork that's lit up by this light that is part of your panel. So it's more than just, here's three boards in a wall. I think make it so that here's the solar panels, but boom, here's this LED lighting that's backlighting an artistic panel, or it could be a display board, could be graphic.
Go to one of the. So I actually, it would be possible to have the backside of it be
the solar or whatever, yeah.
Be a gallery wall.
You got it.
And
make a gallery. That's yes. Do it.
I would love to work with the workhouse board.
All right, Mr. Carter. All right. We got other things that they want to have
later.
The only other comment I was going to say is I feel yo-yoed in the sense that we went from a very light design last time to a monolithic, I now get 2001 Space Odyssey vibes right now. And again, the panels are gorgeous, so I think it's very pretty. I do like the combination of the wood and the steel, though, and I think regardless of where this was, I would rather it be two materials because I think that breaks up the massing no matter what. But that's just other members have given a lot of good feedback on that, too. But that's just my two general thoughts. I don't know if any other members have. John?
Compass orientation is a driving factor in all of this.
Yeah.
And because you're on the south side of the road, most of your stuff's going to face away from the road. That's why you showed the alternate east-west orientation.
I think actually most of the maps are rotated.
It would be helpful if you had a north arrow in your map.
Oh, that's
because that goes to
it's not there.
Yeah,
that's my
North
mistake.
is left.
North is left. Okay.
I apologize.
Okay, but the one location number one, it'll face the parking lot
Yes, it would face the parking lot.
and a driving access point.
And nobody really parks there. It's kind of a dead zone, but.
Yeah.
Well,
But those are all things. One of the things I like about this is, for the most part, solar panel installations are universally ugly that all get out.
Yes.
I mean, they generally disfigure any building on which they're placed.
Yeah.
And so taking steps to either integrate them more gracefully into other surfaces and things like that. I think it's a step forward. Commend you for attempting to do that. But it also occurred to me that, maybe these would be better placed in the Fairfax water facility across the road.
We'll see though.
Yeah. And then, fellow members, if you remember, we at one point entertained a base for a periodic temporary sculpture to be in roughly where the waste stormwater management thing is now. I don't know wherever happened to that, but we had thought about that as a place where a large artwork, kind of as a temporary calling card for the Work Health Arts Center could be there. That's another possibility. I endorse Joe's suggestion that it'd be nice if he could have something, maybe not as big as tall as you had proposed, maybe more modest, 2 horizontal or maybe even 1 horizontal in the quad. I don't know how the folks, your board might think about that.
I think the quad may be off limits, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, okay.
Ground.
Yeah. But whatever. I mean, if it was on a temporary basis, if somebody wanted to put a work of art there.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Okay. And I totally endorse the USB ports.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because, sorry, you said that parking lot's at kind of a dead area, but I'm wondering now with the brewery coming, would people be parking over there? And the reason I asked that question is because then if we leave the one that's kind of at the entranceway in the parking lot, and then we put one that's more over by where the brewery is with the, USB charging, people see it maybe when they park, and now then they see it when they're over at the brewery. I don't know.
I think when they come in, they're going to go Zoom. I think they're going to miss this one. But
That's why I'm
I would
asking.
take under advisement. But I will say this is that on the board way back when, there was talk about having, you said you have these out on a canopy roof structure. That was what they was talking about. It's actually going to go by the ball field there. And that was kind of like a desolate area. That's not there. But this new facility has no shade. Okay, remember, it's dark. So it'd be very interesting if you said, okay, but just kind of do like a tilt. Excuse me? So like a canopy structure that has a slight tilt to it, that people can see it for 123, but then it can provide some shade. It's bigger than what I'm saying, so it's more money and so forth. So I think some Wales needs to keep on thinking about this to do the right thing so that it's functional, USB port, shade. I mean, gosh, what else could you ask for? That's all I'm going to say. I promise.
Open my ear.
Any other members have any comments or feedback?
I'm excited.
Go ahead, Zora.
I would very much like to be able to be able to see through that and see all the artwork of the metal in it. Because I don't want it at night to it disappear and all you see.
Well, could you backlight the design?
Make it acrylic.
The panel?
Structure.
Yeah.
Right.
The solar panel, I don't know if you remember the photograph, that's solar cells are about 6-inch square.
Yeah.
And those are opaque, but they're set in this laminated glass with about 1/8 of an inch in between. So if you backlit it, you could see that grid.
That's what I'm saying, but you have you have these lights you want to do.
Yeah.
You could light up that as almost an art piece at night.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And the lines are metallic silver, so they're very reflective. And the background to them is an anti-reflective metal oxide film that's designed to absorb light. So it's pretty high contrast and quite visible when even from 10 or 20 feet away.
Because I think it's a very delicate piece, and I have trouble putting it into that big, heavy, monolithic element when it is. I could see it hanging or that it almost could be by itself. It looks like it's almost by itself or with just a small frame because it's a very delicate, piece.
It is, and it actually reads differently at different distances. There's different scales that come out. If you get up very close, there's small details.
Right.
It's designed that way, so.
Yeah, right.
Appreciate
No,
it.
I just
Well,
work on it.
Is there a timeline for this? Are you on a time deadline to put this installation in?
No,
Yeah.
but, we'd like to get, we've been working on it for almost 2 years, so.
Okay, 3 years.
Get to it.
All right.
It's
It's,
done. I say it's done.
sounds like we've given you a lot of feedback on ideas again.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can see you back sooner than almost a year, so we can talk about finalizing this and seeing what it's eventually going to
Can
become.
you bring a panel in with you?
Part of one.
Yeah.
They're about the size of a door and made of glass. It would be possible, but it's kind of difficult.
Don't break your
Do
back.
you have a sample that's such a small sample that you could bring?
I actually I do, but I didn't bring it to today, but next time. Yeah.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right. On to our next workshop session. I don't feel like I'm going to set a time limit for member questions. ARB 24 CTV 01WS 5634 Mount Gilead Road demolition. This is in the Centerville HOD. The applicant is proposing to demolish Mount Gilead Carriage House. See, is this the one that changed? No. Laura Grape and Mr. Buchata Gupta are representing the applicant as well. Okay. All right, there you go. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time this evening. I am David Gupta. I'm the Heritage Conservation Branch Manager for the Fairfax County Park Authority and the Resource Management Division. And this is a subject we don't really like to talk about. This is something we need. It's a need currently. So we're going to talk about the demolition request for the Mount Gilead Carriage House / garage. The Park Authority obtained this site and the Mount Gilead House with its buildings in 1996. And at that time, we were able to put a rental tenant into the house for many years, almost 27 actually. But we weren't able to do much of anything with the garage ever. And it was used for storage, various things, but almost no maintenance was done to it for over 27 years. You can imagine what has happened to it over time. And as you can see from the text here, it is currently unsafe. In 2018, our safety analyst for the Park Authority indicated after visiting it, we could not go to it anymore, so it was unsafe. Looked at doing various reports for it. We looked at HABS drawings. We looked at a structural situation, but we just didn't want to put vendors in that situation to be dangerous. So as you can see, the zoning case was approved. The house, although the house was adopted, the garage carriage house was never adopted. So it's really not a contributing structure. So there's no zoning action currently limiting the demolition of the carriage house. And we'd also like to indicate that the program that we have within the Park Authority, the Resident Curator Program, is designed to put a curator into the house. And actually just today, we approved that curator through our process. And so now, because the applicant has small children, we wouldn't want them around this type of structure. We're going to move forward, hopefully, with removing the structure. We did look at also completely rebuilding or rehabbing the structure. It's going to be over $1 million to do that. So even just the demolition is, not a cheap thing either, a couple of $100,000 for that. So next slide. So these are some existing conditions. I've been with the Park Authority since 2016, and that structure has always been in bad condition. I was never able to really enter it. But you can see there's basically 2.5 walls holding it up now. Next slide. We put a fence around it in 2019 because we were concerned. We had residents complaining that their children were playing around it and things. And so we felt it was better to secure it. We still receive complaints from residents who would like us to take it down. Next slide.
Sorry.
This is less than a year ago. So you can see the back part here. There really isn't a second floor anymore. It's just all of the fixtures and everything from the second floor have caved down to the bottom. It is currently a home for vultures, and that's also another reason we wouldn't want children in the house nearby to be around that. So I can recall in 2018, I think, going there, and a vulture about this high approached me. So I didn't go back in there for a long time after that. Next slide. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at. Obviously, this is kind of the beginning of things for us. We had planned to take this down before COVID, but then things got, busy with that, and we weren't able to move the program forward as much as we wanted to. But now that we're moving forward with the resident curator program, we need to address the carriage house. Questions?
Yes, Ms. Hammock.
Unless someone wants to go first. No?
We were wondering about the contributing statement that you made.
Yes, there is in the overlay.
I mean, I only throw out one statement. I appreciate we're talking about demolition, but the county neglected this building. So throwing it out there saying, oh, there are vultures, the county allowed those circumstances to happen. So trying to describe it as we're shaming the historic property for falling from neglect is like blaming someone for getting old. And so I kind of get a little offended when we take that tact. Yeah, it's got problems, and I'm not trying to place it on you. I'm placing it directly in the county's lap.
Sure.
So, then they come to us, oh, we got to demolish it because we neglected it, A or B. Okay, that's fine. I will acknowledge that they committed the flaw here, but it just, I see that too much in my current job when people just try to throw buildings under the foot because they don't take care of them. So I'm a little too close to my own tax dollars.
Go ahead. I live that situation every day because we have over 100 structures that we maintain with the Park Authority, historic structures, and many of them have deferred maintenance, but we have budgets, we have, considerations we have to make. And even though, the house was a priority, that structure was not. I can point out 15 others that are not priorities either, but this is just one that has fallen into this situation. You're right, it's unfortunate, but it is deferred maintenance.
I was going to lead with a similar sentiment, but so I'm empathetic. I've spent most of my career working for city agencies, so I am empathetic to your plight. But I feel like approving demolition feels like rewarding bad behavior. And this is not a shed. I was thinking earlier the shed we saw in Holland Hills was one of the most beautiful sheds I'd ever seen. It's one of the most beautiful garages I've ever seen. And it's been on if you had just purchased this property and I would say, oh yeah, you need to do something, but not you personally. The agency has had this for almost 30 years, and if it needed help, we are a resource. I want to know about the 100 properties that you have, and I would like a condition assessment on all of them, and I would like to know which ones are going to be demolished next year or the year after that, because I don't want this to happen again. And I think that you said someone came to look at it and it needs to be demolished and that you did a cost analysis, but I would like to see the engineer's report. I'd like to see the cost analysis. Even if at the end of the day we approve demolition, I feel like that's the type of thought we need to put in to approving a demolition like this. And that's the type of thought the agency needs to put in to propose demolition to us, if that makes sense. Because I think it is serious.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I think my question's more for my fellow board members who are smarter than me as to, in all seriousness, what are the alternatives? Like, what can we consider beyond demolition? That's not a snarky question. That's a real question that
Could you rehab?
I'm asking.
Well, my question is
Hold on.
Park Authority is at the bottom of the priorities in the county budget.
Yeah.
What the Park Authority does is not legally mandated.
Mhm.
So when things get spent, they spend on firemen and policemen and things like that first. The Park Authority is stuck with too many aging buildings they can't do much with.
Mhm.
This one also is in the hands of the Board of Supervisors for a while, so they're not completely responsible. The point is, it's money, and it's the Board of Supervisors who have to make the decision to spend the money. This board can't demand any of that from him.
We can't ask for an engineer's report?
I don't think so.
You can make a recommendation.
Any type of internal, you mentioned.
You can ask for that, yes, for this site, but for all the other sites, I think that's a little beyond our scope.
Okay, no, of course, if the other sites are not being proposed to be demolished, but I would, if there is any type of documentation, even better condition photographs. I don't feel comfortable approving a demolition of this building based on the information we have.
Are you talking from a perspective of, oh, you want the documentation for why demolition is justified, or are you talking from a mitigative perspective?
I think budget reasons, the building needs to be demolished. But I think just to set a little bit of a standard that our board needs to see some documentation, either photographic or written, so that we can make an informed decision. I want to make an informed decision because I think it has a gravity.
Yeah.
When you have a structure like this, wouldn't there be an evaluation as to what is the cost of rehabbing it? What is the cost of demoing it? What's the cost of maintenance? That would give us an idea of whether it's really, demo is the only way out.
And you mentioned some of those numbers. Are those numbers that can be provided?
Yeah, we have preliminary numbers that have been provided by our planning department that did an assessment.
As well as the most recent HSR.
Yeah, we did an HSR 2 years ago. And although it wasn't focused on this structure, it was focused on the house. But they did mention that the garage carriage house.
And that is one of the benefits the county has taken in response to this, is the resident curator program, which several of the members of the ARB were on to help develop that scope for that, along with many other county entities, to put these in the hands of stewards who would maintain many properties. So there's been an effort to try to shift some of these properties that are not getting the dollars in usage to someone who could take care of them. And as you point out, this is just not a property that ever fell into that that bucket.
I also think it should be documented before it's demolished.
Well, that's why I was wondering if you were going after the mitigation discussion. And
especially if there's an existing contributing, and it contributes to the structure that's existing. I mean, maybe one day someone will want to rebuild this.
John, you were looking at that too, and I think you had your hand up. Is it not contributing, or is it contributing? Because that was what was confusing to
This is
me.
a funny paragraph.
A weird paragraph in the
Weird paragraph.
1992 headlines.
But I think that's part of the technical language that goes with it says, there's a list of contributing features of the district, architecture, and they list Mount Gilead, Harrison House, St. John's, Old Stone Church. And after that is a paragraph that says historic and contributing features. In the report substantiating the zoning amendment that established the Centerville HOD, the 5 buildings described are specifically listed as historic properties. No contributing properties are listed.
Right.
And that's from the...
It's a contradiction.
Our 92 guidelines are, you know why we're trying to update them.
I think that's a reference to what's in the original
Mm-hmm.
thing that they created when they put that district together.
Right.
Back to whenever that was.
Daniel, this might be a question more for you. Within some of our authorities, with Heritage's authorities, when the county, we can normally ask for documentation when something like this happens. Is that something that Heritage is seeking as part of this, if that were to be proposed?
The baseline approach is documentation before demolition for any resource in the county, so yes.
I believe the county has an ordinance to go after people who have blighted property. And, perhaps someone could ask for enforcement of that ordinance in this instance. But at the very least, I think it's unconscionable to the point of neglect to withdraw maintenance for a quarter century or more on any property entrusted. I mean, the county is stewards of these properties. Now, stewardship has meaning. And what I'm seeing here is that the county is it's very disheartening. One thing, if we're going to put together a recommendation, which I guess would be the ultimate outcome of this down the pike, would be I couldn't, in good conscience, recommend demolition unless I could compare what the county started with what you're showing me today. You must, in your archives, have photographs of the property at the time that the county acquired it.
Yeah, it was already in very bad condition, as I understand.
It didn't look like that, I can tell you that.
No.
And I wouldn't doubt that it was deteriorated, but, you know, if you let something, if you let the roof go, everything else starts to go. It's very easy. The simplest thing to do is if you had kept the roof on that, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. But that didn't happen for whatever reason. But I don't think we can go forward with saying this is a good thing, not good. This is something that we can accept as a necessary step without fully understanding where we started from.
My colleagues on the History Commissioners is also very indignant about the situation. I think sent a very testy letter to you guys.
Yes.
They think this is just a disgrace that the county's let this happen.
Well, and I think that gets to what Ms. Hammock brought up. And again, this is more a direction generally to the county, not obviously you being the one that has to deliver the message, but that the series of decisions, as John pointed out, that led to a continued deprioritization and recognizing that the budgets are what they are, the ARB and the History Commission can also advocate that for the protection and prioritization of certain items when it's brought up. We've done it in the past for specific properties. We've made that case, and sometimes we've done it in vain and been told too bad, so sad, and other times, you know, supervisor decides to take up the charge and, you know, find a way to protect a property that is actually, you know, really a darling to many other people. And not just getting letters to say, tear it down. You might also be getting letters to say, I wish you took care of that building. I know those are equal, those letters happen too. So
I think if you had come to us 15 years ago and said, we have a limited budget, this is the property, what do you recommend to stabilize it? I mean, you have a table of experts at your disposal and staff. You can work with the county, not to buff and scrub and make these all gems because that's not feasible, but to maintain them until a better situation comes on. And so, like, I would be completely happy working with someone from the county saying, hey, you know, we have this building and we want to just keep it sound. And what do you recommend? What can you prove? And I would discuss that. And then something like this, because you're right, when a building like this gets wet, that's the root of, you know, it's like, that's the root of all decay. And even if it means covering a building with tar, you know, like we can even do like some unnecessary eyesore situations to prevent long-term damage. So I hope that we can work together with the county in the future on the other delayed maintenance properties.
It's even more frustrating because it's in an HOD too. So that, you know, we've dealt with ones where we have sites in the county inventory that aren't in an HOD, and then the ARB and finds out about it. And we, as our advisory role, advise on that. But the fact that this is in an HOD that is one of our younger HODs in comparison to others, that's partially problematic. I also think that, I mean, if we're talking about being a carriage house, I'm also thinking like we're looking at the loss of a building potentially, likely. I mean, there's probably archaeology here too. What's the level of archaeology?
It's on a concrete pad. So we have discussed it with archaeology and we would not need to disturb that. So
All around it? I mean,
the area around it would be protected. We would not disturb underneath the structure.
then what would be just a vacant lot space then? Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if in the end result is loss of the property, then I might want to get some information out of it, you know, like what could we learn about that location? You know, that would be another question I put to I don't know, Rachel. I'm not the archaeologist on the board.
I mean, yes, no, I was looking through the archaeological sites. I was wondering, you know, how long will it be left vacant before a plan is put forward for what you would like to make usable space out of it? And at that time, there should be a strong condition that if you're, you know, going to move the concrete pad at that time. So there are ways to, I guess, mitigate the loss here, but, you know, it is very unfortunate to lose the building. So I guess I'm trying to hold out hope that, you know, there might be alternatives to that. But yes, in terms of the archaeology, I'm assuming that they said as long as you leave the concrete pad in place, then, and no other ground disturbing activities are proposed, then you're okay. But you're capping or you're leaving capped what, you know, could be excavated in the future.
I was thinking about archaeology around the foundation and I was thinking of mitigated ways to, well, what can we learn about a property we're going to lose? Because there's info around the outside of that perimeter too. So I'll be candid. I'm thinking about what can we make the county do to compensate for the loss.
Well, but that's where I'm saying the money, I would think that the money is better served in documentation. But you were saying you don't even want to send contractors in to do HABs documentation.
We have not in the past because of that. It didn't really, we elected to do the HSR and the treatment plan for the house and did not do any type of structure report or HABs on the structure because we felt it was more important to do the house. So.
Was the person that made that safety determination have experience with historic buildings?
Well, they have experience with our Park Authority buildings. I wouldn't say they're all historic.
And then I think kind of looking at Ms. Hammack's comment about, so she mentioned a whole list, but I would like to know the amount of Park Authority buildings on the inventory that are in this kind of state or nearing this state, because I would rather know now that we've got other buildings on the county inventory that are within the Park Authority's stewardship that because of the way the budget operates, they're just not getting the money for, because then that's another, but I'm thinking these are all things I'd like to see as proactive things or things that come out of the loss here. We're going to lose the carrot house. Then what was the carriage house die for? You know, and if it's going to cost $1 million to save it, then a couple $100,000, you know, only 50, 60,000 to document it really well and do interpretation. So it's still a cost savings in the long run.
I mean, you have to think long-term. Someone might buy that house and say, I want a huge addition. I want to build a second home. And if we have this documented, bam, okay, well, then you can build something that is in the nature of this. I mean, this is, you're making potentially a decision down the road easier.
Well, they can't buy that house. The house is owned by the county.
And it's
I don't have enough money to keep up houses, so.
the county was put in a position they had to take it. The county has been put in that position far too often.
Right.
This should have stayed in private hands, and I knew the people responsible. They meant well, but.
How old is this property?
Carriage house is 1934, 35. It was a later addition when the house was removed.
Is there anything salvageable, any materials that?
Probably not. Maybe wood, but that would be about it. The fixtures and things they were pretty common fixtures, porcelain fixtures, but most of those are in the lower portion now, so.
And we're not in a situation like with the workhouse where if there were bricks that were salvageable for other projects, that's kind of tossed the salvage idea out the window because of the state. So I'm obviously looking for, but what I'm hearing is when the county does come back, we need more information about the studies that were done. The understanding of the cost breakdown is what I'm hearing from folks, are some of the key factors.
If a PE has come to the site, even if it's just an email, like what did the PE say?
Right. So a breakdown of the analysis that is determined the state and deterioration of the property, whatever that documentation is. And then I know Mr. Burns brought up not just current state documentation, but what was the beginning state that we were looking at as well. So whatever package comes forward for an application in the future is going to need to be far more comprehensive. I personally would suggest that while Daniel's pointing out that the county, requires documentation, I think we should try to be proactive about, how well can we make that documentation done, or what can we produce out of that doesn't just require a report on a shelf. Yes, Mr. Burns.
What we could possibly do is make this an educational endeavor, and that have this end up being a study of what happens with not so benign neglect over a long period of time, and an instruction for the county is this is something you want to avoid in the future, and just make this the poster child, or this is what happens when the county neglects its responsibilities and stewardship. and then publicize that. Get that before the Board of Supervisors, make them look at this.
Given the number of new supervisors, it might be timely since most of them have not really been.
This is going in a landfill. Excuse me, sorry.
I had one more.
Well, I think, Ms. Murray, do you have anything else? Sorry.
This is something that the current board has not really had to face. They are coming into an economic downturn, so they're going to be having to face some hard decisions soon. But I think it would probably be good to educate them now and the supervisors and their staffs as to what's going on with the many Park Authority buildings that are crumbling.
All right. Ms. Hammack or Ms. Mangum?
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'll
Mr.
make this brief. Sorry. Once this is demolition, what's going to be in the spot? Just nothing?
We'll plan current.
Okay. And does the county have any future buildings proposed for the site for any kind of use, like storage or anything like that?
No, the resident curator will occupy the house for approximately 15 years in a lease. So their plan would be to focus on the house. We would not require them to.
Okay, this is beside the house. Okay, gotcha. And dare I say, it would be kind of cool. I think architecturally this is really a gem, the way it looks and everything. It'd be kind of neat if there was an opportunity for the county curator, whoever, to build a replica of this, which is not going to happen. But if they ever do an addition out here, maybe it's recorded that the addition needs to match this once in a while architecture.
Yeah.
Just saying that.
As I recall, it's architect designed. That's what they say. You're not
Designed
sure
by a
about that?
Washington architect who worked on the addition.
Right, okay.
Part of the house, yes.
Ms. Mangum?
What is the list of, so the resident curator is responsible for sort of general maintenance and upkeep of the house. Is there a known list of deferred maintenance on the main house, things that the county would be willing to put?
Yes.
So, I mean, in terms of a mitigation package, but maybe you put the money may be best served by putting it back into historic properties that you can help maintain, ensure they're maintained for longer. So one of the ideas I would like to see is maybe how the money, a mitigation package, and I do think we're looking at a significant mitigation package here, is something that puts money back into a resource that the county is going to take care of. So maybe a top 3 of, the main priorities for the main house.
Does the main house look like this, by the way?
Oh, no, the main house is currently inhabitable and has, it's in fairly.
That's going to be habitable. You're going to make
Oh,
it.
Joe, do you remember the faux cedar shake shingle?
Oh, yeah. Is this the one?
This is the one.
Okay.
Yeah, you approved the roof, the new roof.
Back it up?
So,
No, it's in the scope and design
It's
phase.
still deteriorating the building.
Does it need, okay.
Well,
so what I'll say,
Plan.
it's a longer discussion.
so what I think is the bigger question is, can there even be going beyond what is required, which is documentation, Daniel? Can there be anything beyond that we can even ask for?
Documentation is always requested. It's not required.
Okay. Well, so we're requesting more than documentation, is what it sounds like, which is, I think, getting to you, Ms. Mangum, about what you're putting in there is frequently all we get usually asked for is documentation, and sometimes we struggle to get that in some cases.
And in this case, I mean, if this is genuinely the main problem, I would rather see the money go back into ensuring buildings that are teetering on the brink or, just need significant upkeep issues, whether it's a new roof or whatever, that those are prioritized for the money over maybe an expensive documentation package.
Yeah, because the county is the applicant in this situation, because in the other instances where we've asked for it recently, like particularly I'm thinking of the API, we were asking a developer to document a architectural gem, one of a kind, now completely gone. And in this instance, we're talking to the county, who maybe there's a little more room for it to be dynamic in how it looks at, resolving the fact that we're going to lose another property. Since it isn't just a private developer, that would be my only hope.
Yeah, I would just point out, I mean, the treatment plan for the house is right around $200,000 that this couple's going to invest into it. To rebuild this structure is going to be over $1 million. So we were lucky to find someone who was willing to work on the house. We won't find people who are willing to donate $1 million into that structure. Will we be able to do that as the county? Probably not, I'll be honest, but,
There's a lesson there.
and there may be.
You kept people in the house, and the deterioration's only going to cost $200,000. This one you neglected, and it's going to cost $1 million. That's the impact of deferred maintenance.
Yes, for this site.
I can just say, I'm Laura Gray.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've been sitting in the back here. I should be up here with David, but I'm the Resource Management Division Director with the Fairfax County Park Authority, and I really appreciate the discussion and certainly recognize that this is not what we want to be doing. This is not our line of business. This is really painful for us to even have this conversation, to bring this forward to you all. And I think it is indicative of, it's very much a challenge to steward these historic properties with the budgets that we have right now. And we have to rely on our bond funding, and we have to rely on the resident curator program. And David and his team are working really hard to make sure that we get these properties to a state where they are habitable and that we can get resident curators into them. And Mount Gilead is just our newest addition, which is very, very exciting. But this is, I completely understand the conversation and wanting to make sure that we're improving these lines of communication. That's certainly something we're committed to. We hope we don't have to bring another demolition to you for a long time. And I don't mean to say that, facetiously or anything like that. It's sometimes that's the reality of our balancing and being good fiscal stewards as well. Dave, I joined the Park Authority 2 years ago. David joined in 2016, and we inherited some of the conditions of the sites that we're at. We've also made major investments into some of the properties that we have as well. We look forward to maybe bringing examples of Drainsville Tavern to the group as well, which we just recently wrapped up. We'd like to share those success stories because there's a lot more of those than these. But we certainly recognize that, again, it's a challenge right now with the county. And the more that we can bring some of these issues to light and the History Commission and the work that you all do, the more that hopefully we can get a little bit of feet underneath us with recognizing the importance of continuing to have some funds to be able to steward these properties into the future. So, thank you.
I think you've got a lot of questions for more info from us in the long run. And I would say that when you all do come back, I would hopefully there is an idea of what is something meaningful that can come out of this. If the option is we have to approve a demolition, what can the county and its abilities for its programs and what it has produce something with its capacity to come back to reflect some preservation-oriented goal, even if it's not the actual property itself. I think that's what you're hearing is we don't want this to come, the ARB approved the demolition and we're just okay with the reality of things. I think there needs to be a balance here that hopefully the county can talk about and come to a discussion of where is that flexibility, recognizing, as Ms. Murray said, there are tight budgets right now. So it's not like we're definitely not asking for you to come up with $1 million to rehab it. But thank you for enduring our conversation for about this.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right. This is our last workshop session. Evening ARB 24 WEL 01WS 7931 East Boulevard Drive, public access improvements.
Rachel, she's Liz's boss. It's great because Liz Grohl's boss.
All right, this is in the Wellington River Farm Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing several site modifications to provide appropriate accessibility in accordance with the ADA Act, or the ADA. This is Catherine Taylor representing the project.
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine Taylor from Walsh Colucci, representing the applicant, who are the property owners of this property located on Boulevard Drive. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, I did want to mention that we do have representatives today from the American Horticultural Society, who they are the owners of the property, so they can provide more information. We will be talking also about a demolition, so I think it's like a sensitive topic, but we certainly can talk through that during this session. So you can see here, I just wanted to provide some context. If you're not familiar with the site, it's the large parcel that's in the middle, River Farm in Alexandria, Virginia. It's east of George Washington Memorial Parkway, right next to Potomac River. It's currently zoned to the R2 district. And as you heard, it's designated that the Wellington at River Farm Historic Overlay District, which was just recently approved in April of 2021. So you can see the site is developed with several buildings and structures as well as gardens, and it's owned and operated, as I mentioned, by the American Horticultural Society. Next slide. So you may be aware that the Wellington at River Farm has a rich history dating back to the colonial period and has associations with the family of George Washington. Over time, it has become a community landmark, as River Farm is typically open to public visitation and it is a popular destination for community events. Actually, my firm is having their 40th anniversary, I found out, at River Farm coming up soon, and also for weddings and other functions. So as I mentioned, the current owner and operator is American Horticultural Society, and they purchased the property back in 1973. A special exception currently governs the site, which established the Public Benefit Association on the property, and the most recent amendment to that was in 2009, and this is the SEA plat that was approved with that approval. So to implement the proposed improvements we'll discuss tonight will actually require an approval by the zoning administrator for minor amendments to the existing special exception. It would not have to go, at least for now, as we're talking through the application with the county. Right now, it looks like it can be done administratively without having to go to the Board of Supervisors. And we've already begun those discussions with Zoning Evaluation Division. The next slide. And we do have quite a few site improvements. Hopefully I can go through them quickly. I know we're the last and it's getting late into the evening. But just by way of background, in 2022, the Virginia General Assembly did appropriate approximately $2 million specifically for accessibility improvements at River Farm property. And so the board at that time has identified certain improvements that can be made to the site that will greatly improve the public experience, specifically provide ADA access as well as just better public accessibility to the property, gardens, and the site. So that includes a parking lot expansion, creating an ADA accessible trail and viewing space, constructing ADA accessible bathrooms, updating the front gates. And I'm sorry that this was not in the materials or the application that we had submitted, but we would also make interior alterations to one of the buildings called the Carriage House. So the graphic on this slide shows the area of the expanded parking lot and the plans for the trail in red, you can see. And then the blue line is just the RPA delineation that, if you're familiar, the resource protection area. So the trail that we're proposing generally stays outside of that RPA delineation. And we did just receive this concept from the civil engineer, which is why it was not included in the packet of information that we had provided to you all. So I'll take each of these points in turn, again, briefly. So in terms of, next slide. In terms of the parking lot expansion, according to the SEA plat, it did approve 78 unstriped parking spaces around the large circular driveway, with additional 275 off-pavement spaces in a grassy area. So if you've been to the site, you can see on this picture, it only offers 24 parking spaces, but as the site has become more popular and more well-known, that parking area is insufficient to support that large number of visitors. So the hope is that the applicant would like to expand the parking lot to be consistent with the SEA approval, and they would provide that number of paid parking spaces within the new lot. So the applicant proposes only to expand the parking lot to the size absolutely necessary to reach that approved number. And upon expansion, the parking would remain in the parking lot. So they wouldn't be parking around that large circular driveway. While this area you can see with the tree, that's where the parking lot would expand to. So while that one tree will be taken down, the applicant does propose to plant a significant number of new trees. If you want to briefly go back to the previous slide, you can kind of see a little bit better. You can see that little area right here. They would take down this one tree and then plant all of these kind of new trees in that parking area. And then those trees would be non-invasive and would preserve the character-defining features within the overall landscape of the estate. So part of this parking lot expansion, we are requesting the removal of the tenant house, which is this structure right there, right next to the parking lot. And we can certainly talk through that a bit more. It was built in 1935. And as you can see, and this was in the materials as you go through the next slides, this ancillary building is significantly dilapidated, poses a safety hazard for anyone that enters the structure. So this is the exterior. I think the next slide has other exterior pictures. And the structure has been, next slide, so these are more exterior. Interior, the next two slides are just interior. But this structure has been for many years and continues to be utilized simply as ancillary storage space. So it has never been part of the, I guess, visiting the portions that people would visit and look at. It's been utilized as storage and doesn't serve a function or purpose that would enhance the character of this. So over time, it has become more hazardous than aesthetic. And I can appreciate the comments I heard tonight about letting it get to that state, right, over the years. And again, the applicant is here and we can talk through that a little bit more because we hear your concerns and we've heard the things that were being discussed in the application prior to this one. And of course, to restore this would cost a significant amount of money. And I believe that with the funds that they do have, they would rather, you talked about what would go in place of, or what would come about if we ended up demolishing this building. I think rather than putting money into restoring this, they would like to put money into there's so many more structures on the property that do have value and function and enhance the character of this historic district and the state in general. So they would like to, and those need repair as well. So they would like to use that money to, and again, the applicant can talk more to that in a bit. So moving on from this next one, we can go to the ADA trail. Currently, many visitors walk through the grounds and the dense wooded areas to the waterfront. So you can see from the pictures, there's no real designated trail. We kind of started, so the numbers start 1, 2, 3, go to 13, and it kind of follows around this trail. If you can see that.
What is the blue dash?
That is the resource protection area delineation.
Okay.
So that's where the RPA is.
Okay, thank you.
So right now, there's actually sort of an informal service drive. It's not being used as a service drive, but from past years, it was utilized as a service drive. So what the applicant would do is they would install a new 6-foot walking trail that would be ADA compliant over that area. And because the land where this trail, I mean, you can see it, the land has already been disturbed, so we wouldn't be taking down any trees, any existing trees or shrubs to install the trail, but we would be preserving what's around sort of this service drive that's already there. And at the bottom of the trail, there's this meadow, pictures 12 and 13. And so the applicant would like to construct a at-grade or near-grade platform that would be also ADA compliant to kind of allow for visitors to be able to enjoy the view. And so that would be visually compatible with the existing structures and landscape of River Farm. So moving on to the next is the ADA accessible bathrooms. Currently, the public restrooms in the manor house are insufficient in size, they're not easy to access, and they are not ADA compliant. So the proposal would be to convert, there's a structure that's just identified as a garage, and it's garage, and also it has the gift shop that's next to it, that's the green door. And so they would convert an existing garage that's currently used for storage as well. And they would turn that into public restrooms to be ADA compliant. So while the renovations of those are primarily interior, there may be some cosmetic exterior upgrades likely to occur. So if there's any exterior character defining elements or materials of the garage, that would be maintained. So they would try to match, the type of brick, if there's a type of window that would kind of serve that character defining element, they would try to match that in kind, if not the same in kind. And then the next one is just the front gates. So the applicant would like to upgrade and modernize the gates at the property's front entrance. So you can see they're wooded and a bit they're starting to deteriorate. And they've actually already had started conversations with the National Park Service about these gates. And they have also indicated that it would need to remain, or you would need to utilize wood in kind. So they've already started looking at that. One thing they would like to do is make the gates automated, and that would just add a layer of security, both for the visitors as well as the employees that take care of the site. So making the improvements to these gates would refresh the area as well as allow, again, for that added layer of security. So these changes will not impact the circulation on the property or encroach on any landscaping or overshadow any of the existing buildings. And then lastly, which I mentioned, I apologize that this wasn't included in the original submitted materials, the applicant would like to make interior renovations, alterations within one of the buildings identified as the carriage house. And the reason we didn't initially include it is because we were only considering interior renovations, which I think is out of the ARB's purview, correct? But since the carriage house is connected to the main house, it's an addition that was added. Similar to the ADA bathrooms, there may be some exterior cosmetic improvements. So for that purpose, brick windows, for that purpose, if there are any exterior improvements, the applicant will replace the materials or features in kind following the design and finish and visual qualities of any historic elements of the home. So in the end, the applicant believes these improvements are important to reinvigorate certain areas of the property and make it more accessible and convenient for visitors as well as employees. And I would actually like to invite Scott, who's the chair of the board, to kind of talk about the demolition piece, because I know that's going to be one that's probably a hot topic that we'll want to discuss tonight. And then from that, we can
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, everybody. Some might think that it was not fortuitous to come after the presentation before with the demolition request. But actually, in a way, it is, because I want to kind of explain the difference between what happened with the Fairfax County Park Authority and the Gilead, and that's a beautiful carriage house, and it's a shame what happened, but, I also understand the Park Authority's situation. American Horticultural Society was basically gifted this in 1973 by, I want to say her name's Edwina, but it's Haupt, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Haupt name. And this lady had part of the Annenberg family also, and so is responsible for lots of gardens throughout the United States, including at the Smithsonian Castle, the gardens there, if you've been down there, New York Botanical Gardens, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a gift from her for this property, basically for us to pay off the mortgage around 1973. And in fact, Pat Nixon was there for the dedication when this happened. There's been a lot of history that I'm not totally familiar with, but recent history I became involved with the American Horticultural Society almost 2.5 years ago now. And some of y'all might have remembered there was a lot of controversy over the river farm. And there was half the board that basically wanted to sell it. I can tell you what I think the whole story behind that is, but I would have to clarify that with our now not so much more next door neighbor named Dan Snyder, I think. Yes. And so, but I was brought in by actually the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust as a developer, and also I've been in the landscape business in Northern Virginia and the Washington metropolitan area for almost 50 years now. And so I'm sure you all are familiar with the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust. Perhaps some of you know Alan Rouse, who runs that organization. I'm a big supporter of theirs. He brought me in because of my development experience, started kind of getting involved and finding out what was happening. It just so happens that at that time, and working with Senator Suravel and Senator Marsden and Krizik, Delegate Krizik, I think at that time, right around the summer of 21, was when the property was put under the historic overlay district. It was not until that time. And it was a defensive move, if you will, okay, to put one more layer on this to make it that much more difficult for whatever this ruse was that somebody was going to build X amount of townhouses there or a resort or something else, which would have gone over real well with the Mount Vernon community. But anyway, so fortunately, we were able to save the farm through a lot of effort. We were able to take monies that were going to be used to buy the farm from the state legislature of $2 million, along with Scott Servell and the help again of Dave Marsden and some others. We were able to convert that bill in 2022 into using that $2 million to make public access improvements to the property. I think it's really important to note that this property is a public property. It's accessed by the public. Over 50,000 people, and that is being conservative, over 50,000 people visited last year to this property. Events are held here, both weddings and what have you, to help us bring in some income. We still run at a net negative basis of in excess of $250,000 a year for the operation of the property itself, but it's open to the public at no charge. So in a way, we're a public park that's funded by a nonprofit organization that really is the American Horticultural Society with a mission of its own. But it's so special to the folks in the, that are on the board, and special to folks within this area, like the people I just mentioned, but also the neighborhoods around there and beyond that, that we are continuing to strive to maintain and improve this property in every way we can. This particular structure here, I don't know if you all know Mark Orling of Rust Orling. Okay, Mark's been out there. We're working with Mark now on the handicap bathrooms, and we're working on some other stuff with Mark. We had Mark go out and do an assessment of this building here. And by the way, I've renovated some old places. I have a place called the White House Farm up in Luray, and it's an 1890s home. Unfortunately, on another farm that I had to make the same kind of decision as at what point is something so dilapidated that you just can't make anything happen with it. I believe that's the case with this. Mark Orling estimated that it would be approximately $400,000 to fix this structure. I'm not going to comment and make about what the historic value is, et cetera, but you can imagine $400,000 is a big nut for us for everything that we need to do on the property. One thing that I failed to have Kathy do was to show all the other buildings on the site, although I think my bet is that at least half of you have been to the River Farm. I would hope so, and if not, I'd hope that you'd come out and visit. But we have the main house, which was built in 1927, more or less. It was built over the foundation of the original house that was there, that goes back to George Washington's time as one of the 5 Mount Vernon farms, if I can call it that. And so we have that building there, which needs a lot of renovation. And, again, from my experiences, I'm just throwing out a rough number, but for the main house, you're probably talking somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million to bring that house up to snuff, if you will, both from an exterior standpoint and an interior standpoint. And then we have the one house where you saw that the doorway with the arch in it and what have you, where we want to fix up that for some public area access to that. And so we've got that building, and that's connected to another building, which you don't have a picture of, which is a wood structure that connects to that. And that is definitely salvageable. But again, you're talking about, I would say, and I don't feel I'm exaggerating, another easily $750,000 to fix that up eventually. And then we have those 2 garages that you saw. And then in addition to that, there is a what would you call it? Cottage. There is a cottage up towards the front that we could utilize one day for a caretaker's building. That one's a little bit easier to fix up, okay? So I'm going to give that $100,000, all right? So if anybody was doing the math in their head, let me know what we just spent. But at the end of the day, again, this is all being funded by the American Horticultural Society. More importantly, we hope to have an endowment that we can raise money for, and that we can get maybe more money from the state, maybe from the county. The county seems to love this. I know Jeff McKay loves it, thinks highly of it. and as does Supervisor Stork. And so we've got a long ways to go and a lot of things to do. But the money that we got from the state was very specific as to public access. That was the way we were able to change that bill from purchase to using the money. And it really was a great win for us. And the parking lot is an important issue there. And as is the handicap bathrooms, quite frankly, is the number one priority, because we don't have handicap bathrooms for all the people that come there on a daily basis and visit it. And that's kind of, I don't want to call it shameful, but it would be shameful not to provide them now that we have these public access monies. And and then building the parking lot, it's logical to take this building down right here. Again, Kathy did a great job of describing to you the access to the river, having a viewing there. And I want to make it very clear that our MOU with the county, with the state, to use the $2 million, we could change some of these other things, but we want to make sure that this parking lot is, kind of up there on the top right after the handicap access. And really to do the parking lot and to have this building in the position that it is, in the condition that it is, that we would hope that we would get some agreement to be able to demolish it. And I will say that the argument that was made about the county with, letting this happen, and it's a totally different dynamic of what we've experienced through the stuff that we went through 3 years ago. But quite frankly, the property was allowed to be run down for a very long time, and the organization was not putting money into it to maintain it, much less improve it. Or should I say improve it, much less maintain it. But there's been, again, if anybody's been out there, it's definitely a lot nicer than it was 3 years ago, and we're going to continue in that direction. So, we would hope to get a feeling tonight from you all as to how this might work out.
I think the most logical way to walk through this, since you have several items, might be to take them chunk by chunk, so we don't jump around each of the items. So
I appreciate that.
we're talking since you're talking the parking lot expansion, which requires demolition, why don't we first let any board members who have questions or feedback on that one, then we'll go down the line, basically. So
The question is this a contributing, was this in the house?
It's all of the structures actually on this site are, I think, identified as contributing.
I thought there was something that was current that wasn't, but I'm not.
I looked at the guidelines today, and this is contributing. Basically, all the little.
there's several layers of ages of
This is a 1935 structure, part of the colonial revival.
Yeah, it was built.
Renovation.
Yeah, I think this.
It's a tenant house.
This, along with the caretaker's house, and I think the carriage house, was all built in 34, 35.
And I think when we when the HOD was put together, there were different levels of what I would describe as integrity for some of the different buildings, depending upon changes and modifications they've been. But I don't have that right in front of me. But
yeah.
So, but you're right, Kate. It is contributing. So it is definitely, similar to the other situation. We are talking losing a property if the demolition goes forward. Ms. Hammock.
So the previous carriage house that we saw, high level of architectural detailing, really an exemplary example, I think, of a carriage house from its time, directly related to the home that it was built. It was contemporary to the home. And this does not have a high level of architectural detailing, but it is an outbuilding, essentially, a supportive building to a functioning farm. So for me, it's less that it needs to stay exactly where it is and exactly the same, what it looks like, but it would be perhaps negative to lose an outbuilding, since it is what's significant about this site is how it evolved over time, and also that it is a functioning farm and that there are lots of different supportive buildings. So I wonder, could this be relocated or rebuilt another location in a similar form so that that memory is retained, especially if, I don't know the exact history of the site. Perhaps the colonial revival restoration was the significant dot on the property's timeline. I'm thinking yes, if it was considered contributing to the site. So that was my thoughts. Could it be rebuilt somewhere else, even if it's in a smaller form or a slightly different form? And the other question was, who abuts the parking lot extension? Is it private homes? And will they be affected at all by the grading or visibility of the new parking?
No, actually, the parking area, our current design, it would actually kind of sink the parking area a little bit. So when you drive in, as far as from a view shed standpoint, you would see less of the parked cars, because where you saw that tree before, it would kind of dip down. There would actually be a retaining wall there that hides, it'd be hidden from the view. And again, you know, in the HOD or whatever the criteria was, it talked a lot about the primary thing was making sure that the view shed was kept in place for the important parts, which is looking down at the river as well as looking at the various buildings throughout the.
Well, I think that's the best place to put the parking then, that you're actually thoughtful. And,
absolutely.
And does this have to be reviewed by Richmond or at the SHPO?
No, Richmond has been very, very good to us. They said, look, here's the deal. We wrote our MOU and we now have the $2 million in the bank. And all we have to do is report to them on a quarterly basis
How you're spending it.
how we're spending the money and what we're spending it on. So.
And I think important note to that is, as he's mentioned, people don't visit this portion of, you know, they park their cars, it's next to the parking lot, but people are not visiting this tenant house.
Can you-
Similar to the.
Point out the tenant house on the parking layout, just so I can, I'm
And it's-
making sure okay, I want to make sure that, because,
Underneath, I think this tree. Like right.
See it when you.
so the tenant house is right where you were,
The next slide.
It's a great
okay.
bathroom.
That's the bottom.
So-
This is where it would be brought down and bring this height up here.
and I think I'm getting the same place that both Ms. Hammack and Ms. Mangum are asking about
I was
is,
just going to make real quick, I'm sorry. It was that they can't use any of that 2 million to relocate or do anything, improve that house. That saying it
Meet the breed. It doesn't meet the breed.
correct. So they couldn't.
Well, and I guess, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not comfortable with the demolition. I don't think it's apples to apples to the building we saw earlier this evening. So
sure.
I'm open to it, the demolition.
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt that. That was just the
All
point.
right, well, no, you already seem to be talking through the thought of going, well, if the building's near a parking lot, as a man who has 2 children,
By the way,
I visit parking lots, there's usually bathrooms because I have to go find a bathroom for a little child. So,
Which you will find walking right up out of the parking lot with our new handicap bathroom.
I want to make sure, since to be focused on, to get you guys all more questions, I know Mr. Burns, Mr. Zelman have comments. So.
Okay, we're going to do these in order, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
5?
yeah.
Okay. So for the parking lot expansion, my recollection is on the north side of your loop, that's actually a fairly good sized berm. It must go up 3 or 4 feet. And so and then the parking lot drops down as you go down the driveway.
There's not a berm there. It's the grade.
Well, it's a from the road surface moving north. That's up. I walked it. It's quite a distance. And then beyond that, right where your tree is, it slopes down to the current parking lot. You're talking about just continuing up there. Are you going to get rid of some of that bamboo back there? There's an enormous.
Well, actually, we will need the $400,000 it would take to do that, to get rid of the bamboo.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to finish the question that as far as any of our neighbors, there's no way they can see anything. We own down where there's an old pool down there, by the way. But certainly that would be something we'd want to do sooner or later. But I'm in the business where we do that type of work. It's a massive undertaking.
It is. Yeah.
Massive.
And I think that's even part of the ADA accessible trail.
Well, that actually goes along the side and I can describe that when we get.
Yeah, there's bases and things that need.
And then with regard to potentially relocating the building, I don't think there's anywhere else that it wouldn't be intrusive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I've been to the property before for an event and got there early and parked, thank goodness. So the parking's necessary. From what I remember from having been at the site, I can, while this is an outbuilding, I certainly agree with that. It is far from the focus of the overall house and the rest of the site. I mean, if you were going to, I don't want to say it's good to get rid of something or demolish something, but if you were going to pick one, this would probably be toward the top or at the top of the list of the buildings that you would demolish. And it makes sense for that parking lot. And if we are going to use these funds that my law partner so gracefully helped get, it's going to get, more people to the site, hopefully. And so then you need some more parking because I was there for an event for like maybe 80 people were there and you could barely park. And so, I sympathize again because we just had the demolition discussion, but.
No, but I think that's very valid.
Yeah.
Mangum and then Mr. Plumpy.
Sort of an overview question, but have you started with a master plan? And that's where I heard you mention the name of a person that came in and did a conditions assessment of a few of the buildings, but is there I know master plans cost money, but I'm just thinking of long-term.
We've been down that road before.
Okay.
Okay. And they get very grandiose. And right now, before we build another structure, it would be a decade or more with everything we have to do just to take care of the existing structures. So it's so far out there that I personally am an advocate of not going through that exercise right now. I mean, we just installed a garden on I'll call it the Snyder side. We just did a perennial. It's 60% native and 40% cultivar perennial garden with a Virginia feel here. We did that last fall. We had a lot of help from people in the landscape industry, supplying materials and what have you, and labor and everything else. And then, and a factor that helped pay for it. And, we have other things to do with the landscaping, et cetera. And then we have those improvements, like I said, to the houses and what have you. So from a master plan standpoint, there's really no purpose in it right now because we don't, we know the parking lot, as was stated by somebody here. This is the place to keep the parking lot and to put the parking lot there. As far as this handicapped access trail down to the river with a viewing, there's what they call a ha-ha wall right here. And so you can't get down from here. And this is the only grade that you could use to make it handicapped accessible to be able to follow the ADA rules, which is either 5 or 8% on a trail like that. I can't recall at the moment. But that was the only grade that we could find because there's an existing road right there now, service road that's been there forever. There's even some concrete stone layered wall here where it's already cut out. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. So I guess it's a mini master plan.
Well, and that's where, even having that kind of plan is helpful because I think you're not looking for a lot of other demolition or, like you said, modifications. You just want to take care of what's there.
Correct.
Even knowing that, but I just, to the extent that you're citing things in the best location, like I don't disagree that that's probably the best location for the parking, but sort of like you want to have the big picture up front so that you can work toward that goal.
Right.
And nothing, down the road changes it. I'll have some additional comments later about the archaeology, but we'll.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
If I may, there were 3 master plans done in the last 25 years. We have copies of those. Overly ambitious.
Right.
And it just all failed because of the massive funding and overachieving goals. They were
Can I get your name for the record?
Peter Tajat.
Okay.
Peter's
Just make sure.
Peter's the head of facilities.
Okay.
And works for the American Horticulture Society.
I had a feeling Daniel probably had it, but I'll make sure for the recording and everything it's in there.
Right.
All right. And Joe, and then I think we'll try to.
I will do it
next
I'll do it quickly. Hey, real quickly, I think the parking is a great location. I have no problem demolishing the building itself, the landscape architectural building. I would like to save the bike rack. That seems very historic. Just kidding. I think the bike rack. Got to keep it. The other thing I had, which is somewhat related to the parking lot, well, is actually directly related to the parking lot, is the site grading. There's going to be a lot of site grading out here. And I'm glad to get someone who are involved already in it. And Russ Olin, I know him very well.
And J2 has been working with us. J2 has been working with us on the landscaping.
J2
I mean, on the engineering, J2.
Okay, yeah, got it, yeah. Yes, I know that. So you're in good hands. I may want to talk to you later about some other things, but in any event, in a good way, or voluntarily, so to speak. But,
We need all we can.
thank you. But I was going to say is that creative ways for storm management, because you'll have to go into the storm management and so forth, and
Right.
it'll be interesting if you looked at this pavement, is it all regular asphalt, is it permeable? Do you have some kind of thoughts on that down the road? You don't have to answer it now, but say,
Yeah, we've looked at that, yes.
yeah, and then I know you have to have lighting out there, I assume, you have EV events, it's wintertime and so forth, so lighting is very important. Either it's in the trees or whatever, so that's kind of important to me. Right now, that building is used for storage, correct? Or if you can find a place to store,
Hardly even
it doesn't get wet. This building and the other one are both used for storage. The bathroom one, I don't get a little ahead of myself on number 3 here, but where are you going to put that storage? Are you going to get another
throw it
for that or not? Or just have a
Garages have been 90% cleaned out. Those are little older pictures.
I'm just saying, okay.
Right. And the outhouse, what's in there, some of it is really not important. And we have some other garages that we just need to continue clean.
Yeah.
Got it. And then the lawn area to the plan south, far right, far left, excuse me, that's temporary parking. Looks like you have temporary parking facilities on the lawn, open lawn there. In your photograph, it looks like it's.
Yes, the open lawns is designated as a parking area for large
It's
events.
parking and so forth.
And the special exception
Special exception.
allows for so many of those,
Right.
here, blah, 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 blah.
Last question, is it well and septic or all sewer now?
It's sewer and water, and the only well that we'll have is a well for irrigation. We have an irrigation well. That's the only thing we draw from the well.
Thank you, that was quick.
So I will say, I don't know if this is beyond the scope of what you all are reviewing, but you brought up stormwater management. So because we are adding the pavement, that obviously increases.
Impervious paving.
And so part of taking down this house, which we're working with JT,
You get a little bit, but not a lot.
that's actually where we would locate a new BMP.
It's a logical place for the water to go.
But I would recommend when you come back to do your demo, I mean, eventually you'll have to come back to the site too as well for approval.
Sorry, say that again?
You'll need to come back here for your site improvements too, not just demolition, like grading. and-
Right. Well, so the demolition is obviously part of.
Yeah. First step.
Building on that, so when you do come back in the future, obviously we usually have a lot of feedback on parking lots and improvements with site plans like that, and Joe hit a lot of them. And you mentioned the plantings and the ideas of landscaping and lighting around there, but I think the goal in my mind would be whatever is designed here, if this is including losing that property, is that it continues to be unobtrusive, so that, as you said, we're not drawing attention away from the reason people are here, and that's something that obviously we'd want to tackle later on when you actually have something more to digest. But if in that mind, why don't we talk about trail? Does folks have any comments on the trail?
Be against an ADA trail.
Well, John raised his hand right when you said that, so let's hear John's.
No, and actually, I've walked that trail. My wife and I do walk because I live not far from there. But we discovered that on our own. Said, well, look, this goes around here. But you mentioned in your presentation that you won't have to take any trees down. But when we were there, I believe it was last spring, about a year ago, there was some horrendously large machine chewing up
I can explain
plant
that.
materials just down the hill from the house.
And yes. And so basically what that is we are in the midst of an invasive plant removal program that will take years, okay? But as is typical, all the way to George Washington Parkway, all these older neighborhoods, whether they be in Arlington or they be in Alexandria, on down to Mount Vernon, the invasive problems are huge, huge. So we've gone in, and Peter, with volunteer groups, et cetera, hopefully you noticed as well when you were there, we came in and girdled all the vines that were going up, the tulip poplars, the sycamores, and the other various really majestic trees that are there, as well as the American hollies that are there, et cetera, et cetera. Then we came in with our this special mulching machine that I experimented with. I have a nature preserve out in Haymarket, and we're doing huge invasive plant removal there and doing a lot of experimental stuff. This really good system come in and just pulls all that up, chops it up like a mulcher. And so it's just the kind of first step, because we're dealing, quite frankly, with the debate about what you can and can't use to eliminate invasives. And I'm sure many of you are aware that the the debate about whether you use Roundup versus, you
Flamethrowers.
know,
There's a tool, it literally burns the
yeah.
Get some volunteers out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so, but anyway, that's a whole other subject, but that's what that was about.
It was in the range from 10 to maybe 11.5 is where they were doing it.
Yes, they were doing 10 to 11.5, but they also did it down in this area as well down here, right, Peter?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think they were doing that when I was there.
Yeah, but by the time we were finished, that's where we got.
And we have an ongoing volunteer weekend removal of invasive plants.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you're talking about this as an accessible path, right? Which I think means paved.
That's good.
Most likely.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, and so, okay, so it's going to have to be that. Right. I presume it'll be a daylight trail, so you won't have lighting for night?
You know, because we're not, we don't have, we're dawn to dusk.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with that said, with the parking lot, I just want to make a quick comment. There's no doubt in my mind, if I have anything to do with it, we'll be doing dark sky.
Yeah, that's fine. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. But Mr. Burns bringing a very good point. I was going to bring that up too about the pavement itself, because that'll also increase your imperviousness. So you have to kind of play with that too, because you.
And we'll deal with that in the site plan process.
Yeah, I know.
To the ES and all that other kind of stuff and everything else. But again, when you look at it in relation to the overall.
Totally agree. I'm just helping.
Right, hold on, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, one last question. Can you show us on the map the current accessible path to the main house?
Current accessible path to the main house? That would be
In the
right here,
parking lot?
right here in the front.
The picture number.
And that,
It's a drop
I'll
off.
take that back. I'll take that back. The accessibility to the house, the only part accessible from a handicap wheelchair standpoint, if you will, is from the back event area that you probably have been to into the, what do you call it, ballroom?
Ballroom.
Okay, that's
To the
all we
ballroom,
have.
okay.
And that is one more thing that, one more reason we need to build the handicap bathrooms, because we don't want anybody to have to access the rest of the house, for different events as well as just our visitors that we have there in general, the people who come and walk around. So again, there's a lot of work to be done at this property over literally the next 10 years.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I think Ms. Ham.
I was just going to say what the the money that you've been given does not include the maintenance of the paved trail, right? Because once you pave a trail, you have to maintain a trail, especially that needs to be safe for handicapped people with disabilities. So is that part of the $2 million? Is that going to be worked into your budget?
We work into our budget when we have a long ways to go to endow this to be able to maintain it at the level it needs to be maintained. And we're hoping to do so through both, folks who are,
I hope
and maybe a benevolent.
whatever you do to propose, I hope that's one of the factors that's considered in whatever the material is, that this is something that's easy maintenance wise.
Exactly. Yes.
And then I think Ms. Magby.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So obviously, the design guidelines specify that ground disturbing activities over 2,500 square feet. And so I will just, obviously that, it's documented here, but I think we can all know based on its history that there's a likely potential for there to be some archaeological resources. So some type of consultation with the Fairfax County Park Authority. It's the Archaeology and Collections Branch.
Mm-hmm.
They have staff that assists in doing at least the initial assessment based on where you're planning on the ground disturbance to assess whether there's a need for an archaeological survey. I don't know whether the $2 million can be used for some of the studies that you need to do to.
For everything we want to do is going to be more than $2 million, to be honest with you. Okay. But we're going to use that $2 million hopefully to leverage being able to make more improvements. Mm-hmm. And I certainly understand as a developer the archaeological thing.
Yes.
So.
I think that's built.
All right. And
yeah, it's built in this. Yeah.
Any more on this one, or do we want to go to item 3, which was, I believe, the restaurant plus gift shop?
If you want to go through the slides, it'll follow it, the rest.
Still gift shop and restrooms, or now just restrooms?
The gift shop, I believe, is staying.
Well, yeah, what our plan right now, and again, we're having Russ Dorling do a study on it, but our plan right now is most likely to be that building where the gift shop is, to put the restrooms there, and to be able to expand maybe and even have a little bit larger area in the gift shop area where there's some kind of public purpose, whether it's, kids being able to sit around in a circle of chairs and, play plant games, whatever.
Library or something.
Library, et cetera, et cetera. But that building is the one that's most likely to end up being really the main dollars that go into that. And then on that other building with the arch that I talked about that's closer to the activity area, we're going to do something in that area also to make that, in that building, to have some multi-use.
Amy, do you want to take us to that picture?
Yeah.
Why does that? It'd be good the next time you come is have a map that identifies all those buildings.
Yeah,
It is on there, you just can't see it.
It's
I
hard.
mean, just labels or something like that.
Yeah, well, this isn't a future, and not less for you, probably more for you, because you're the one that probably is going to run the presentation. A map that kind of helps.
As I saw tonight with all those other things, this is not the greatest viewing thing. I think, we're more than happy to bring copies.
Yeah, well, and you're a workshop, so you're seeking our input, but when we
Next
do,
time we come to you, hopefully, if we kind of get a sense tonight, which I think we are getting a sense, that we're going to go back and start really working on some real plans that we would then bring to you all and say, this is, the grade's going to be this much in the parking lot, this and that.
Got it.
EMPs are going to work like this, so on and so forth, and what have you. But this right here is most likely going to be where we put, there's one more.
No, that's it, 3
That's it.
garages.
Most likely the restrooms would go in this area here, and then this area we might use for some other kind of use, maybe for some of the storage. Believe me, the storage we have it's more like mom and dad's attic.
Gotcha.
Okay? You really shouldn't leave these things. That's one of my big goals in life for my kids. And so, and then this is where excuse me. Anyway, this is where the current gift shop is that needs a lot of work too. And when we're talking about aesthetics or exterior improvements, the exterior improvements would basically be, like replacing the rake board and coming back and replacing this trim. But everything we would do, you can see these doors. You can't see them here, but they're, old wooden garage doors, probably circa 40s, maybe 50s. And, we would do everything we could to replicate that feeling there, but we're putting doors into them. And
yeah, that was going to be my question is, how are you going to change the dialogue of the building? Will I still get
we'll be
garage?
showing you that when we get a little bit further. But my intent, again, I've redone a home in Luray, and I redid it like 96% what it originally was, whether it was the hard pine floors or whatever. My vision would be to respect the original architecture and materials as much as possible. And I would think that's what you'd want. So particularly from an exterior standpoint.
Any observations for Ms. Hammock?
Well, I think that these clearly read as garage bays. So any infill that goes in should be in the idiom of garage bays. I don't know if they necessarily, it is also, it's a modern home. I think you can be very creative with garage infill. It's actually great because you can do something that opens up and actually provides shade or becomes an open element, and you can do the infill set in. You can get really, I don't think you need to necessarily stay super traditional. I think if it reads like a garage bay and operates like a garage door in some way, you could, especially if it needs to be bathrooms, it might need to be more like a bathroom. Maybe the infill's behind the door. I don't know. I think
I'm counting on Mark Orling to come up with some
Good job.
good stuff because that's why we went to Mark. I prefer to see it as close as possible, but at the same time, you have to respect functionality. I think that's where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Functionality with a respect for the historic aspect.
Any other? Okay, that wasn't you putting the hand up. It was arm stretch. Okay. Sorry. I could read facial expressions. We got the mask. Okay. Well, that seems like it's more, we're workable with that idea. So let's, the gates, which I hope is going to be a really easy one too from us.
All right. So the gates and the fence, okay. it's going to be an interesting conversation. You know, 4-board fence is not necessarily historically correct for this property. I'm not sure what it is, but we're going to take a look up and down the corridor, particularly perhaps at Mount Vernon, what have you, and look at some of that vernacular, if that's the right word for it. This area here, though, here, we definitely want to do something that allows an open gate, eliminates this center thing here so we have better turning radiuses for a bus that might come in or something along those lines, for that matter, a trash truck. But this is all under the purview of the National Park Service. There is a 200-foot, as probably you all saw, there's a 200-foot easement that is controlled by the National Park Service. I can't think of Charlie's last name, but anyway, great guy. He's going to work with us as much as he can, but the limitations that the National Park Service are going to allow are like minuscule. And it's a fact, as a matter of fact, they would never have granted this again, except at the time they did grant it and they've changed whatever, but it will be no wider than it is. Unequivocally, we were told it's not going to be any wider than it is.
I would say procedurally, it'd be very helpful when you do come back for an approval that you have information on how you've coordinated with the Park Service.
Absolutely.
Because we particularly don't want to run afoul of other entities. We like to know what other folks are telling when we have multiple entities informing applicants, whether it's Richmond or whether it's the NPS or whether it's a local HOA. It's good.
By the way, DOF has the back 200 feet going up to the river under an easement, but it's a pretty flexible easement.
The comments on the gates. I'm not seeing any comments on the gates. Let's
Oh, the last one is the
carriage house interior renovation.
similar to the garage.
I mean, what would be an envisioned exterior? You talked about that, so.
All that would happen on the exterior would be, if this had to be replaced, but we'd replace it with something exactly the same. Okay. And, we might, not on this building, but on the building we were talking about with the handicap bathrooms, that has a shingle roof on it. And we would be replacing that roof with shingle again, probably. Okay. But I think that actually that you can tell by the brickwork that was done later than this building here.
I guess to help, particularly help you, the last month we had an applicant that was looking at a barrel vault to do a brick project. And we provided a lot of feedback to them about some of the things we'd want to know and see just on just on that. So I think and then we've done, I think 2 months ago, another project for an exterior repair of a county property. So there's been several times we've had exterior renovation rehab projects that have had work that have come to us. And we really just, in particular, I would say most of the board members are wanting to know the details and the information of how, just exactly what you said, replacing kind, what types of materials, if you're doing repointing.
And what we're actually doing.
Yeah, and then what the qualifications of the folks that are doing it are going to be, because, that's the information we would really be seeking in particular.
Yeah, I think the term is pre-qualification.
Right. And again, when we come back with the architecturals and what have you, or the draft architecturals, those architecturals, I'm sure, will have samples of the existing trim board and the trim board that it's to be replaced with because of deterioration that has likely happened to much of it.
What's your timeline on trying to do any of this work? 2025 or 20?
First of all, we have to go through this thing called permitting.
20.
So that brings us to 28. But realistically, with this $2 million that we're spending, I think it's going to be 5 years. And that's just Scott's guess. But, just getting through the permitting process, coming back to you guys, actually having the board decide what they want to do, the board of directors. Again, I want to make it very clear that this money is for public access. The board might kind of start having a different idea about this, that, or the other, which we would share with you, obviously, as well. Tonight was to get, the temperature, the feeling. Appreciate you understanding the situation with the wooden structure.
Is this your headquarters? Is this where, you have offices?
National headquarters for the American Horticulture.
You have offices in that big?
Yes, we have offices in.
Okay, got it.
I would also think about, is this going to be a something coming for a single application wholesale, or could this be something that's done over several applications? That's one thing you might want to think about.
I think we need to get, get down to the nitty gritty.
And it sounds like when you start talking to your board and stuff, you'll have a better idea of that, but
Yes.
I think that's,
And when
we are able to be flexible with that type of
I
process.
think once the board determines, yes, we want to do the parking lot, yes, we want to do the trail, or yes, we don't want to do the trail, but we want to do the trail on the other side, which wouldn't work. But anyway, just use an example, I think we would put that all together back to the master plan question. We would put that together and that would be our master plan for the next 5 to 10 years, would be the, either what we've shown you tonight in much more detail, or whatever the board might say, you know, we'd really rather spend our money over here, raise our money over there, and then we would bring that back to you as well.
And the reason I mention that is because you could sort of prioritize whether you come back for a workshop for a specific component or something like that.
I think I don't think we're in the position yet to figure out what's the best way to do it, but I appreciate it.
And then, John,
How good are the permits? How long do the permits last? Because I would say
two.
get a permit for everything that you might know.
They're not going to have the money at the time to do it.
No, but I mean, you could stage it and you don't have to.
2 years.
No, it's only good for 2 years. That's, okay.
Yeah, and then,
You can renew it up to 2 years if you.
Can you? Okay.
I don't know. I'm
It's
just
up to
thinking.
you, but you can invest that money and make 5% of it, and you'd be million by the time.
it sounds like you have some thinking about that, but Mr. Burns.
We put all the money into Bitcoin, so we're.
Trouble.
All right. I'll clap the gavel for if I need to, John. Go ahead.
One last thing on the trail. I was just thinking of what I observed in the times that I've walked through there. Young mothers love the kiddie part of the garden. And if you have that accessible trail that kind of loops around kind of by the north end of that, if there could be like a little part of it that would allow grandparents to come in with their kids and visit that portion of your property, that
From the
accessible trail.
Oh, actually, the grade won't allow for that.
I wouldn't. Okay.
Okay, but it is accessible from the parking lot through the arched brick wall, down the brick
And then
wall.
down,
And we're actually extending the brick walk, if you're familiar with the brick walk that gets to that first little area, they call it the wedding walk.
Yeah.
And now we're going to be extending that walk to the back through that alley.
That'll connect out to your trail then.
No, it'll stop.
That was below?
Yeah, that trail cannot be accessed in any way other than what we defined because of the grade.
And thank you. My last comment.
Real quickly, what was your name again? I didn't catch it.
Scott Klein.
Scott Klein. So much.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you all coming, one being the last workshop and putting up with us because I knew it was a big presentation.
That was a lot to go through.
I was really glad to have you all here, though. Thank you.
I think it's going to be great.
And yeah, and I think in general, you've
Yeah.
got I feel like there's a positive reaction to the ideas you've got. And I think this sounds like there's a workable path here.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Thank you all for
Thank
your
you so
time.
much.
Thank you. All right. Let's move expeditiously through our board and staff items. Presentation's done. Board staff items. So review and action on the approval of previous month's minutes. Remember, Daniel's given us a corrected one, so it's the 11th that we should be approving, not the 31st. No one had that New Year's Eve meeting. We don't talk about that one. So I would look for a motion for someone to approve there you go, Mr. Zellman.
I move the ARB approve the January 11, 2024 meeting minutes and pay the clerk Reddington.
All right, is there a second?
Yeah.
Seconded second by Ms. Macklin, okay. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. All right, treasurer's report, we have a balance as the end of January 31st of $17,188.28. I don't think there are any other substantive updates on that, right, Daniel?
No, I have asked about the disbursement that was approved a few months ago and have not heard anything, so I will follow back up.
Okay.
Disbursements.
Yes. All right, administrative equipment request. How are we doing on those laptops, projectors, and all those fun things?
Well, unfortunately, this is a different piece of equipment.
Oh, no.
What kind of car? So the ARB has been assigned this room for all regular meetings for the calendar year.
Oh, it's the podium.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have been assigned this room for the majority of potential special meetings, which I will touch on in a moment. But because of that, we need to request the purchase of a tabletop lectern. So we have a PDF to show, but
That's a loaner.
that is a loaner that lives in the front lobby. So this would belong solely to the ARB. It would live.
So who's going to take that home?
How much does that set us back?
We made sure to not go after an Arkansas one.
Can we
Yes.
scavenge one from somewhere? No.
I mean, that's
I
like,
have tried. So this
It's on Craigslist.
oh, there you go.
yeah. So this is what it would look like, and it would just stand on the table.
No, that's veneers.
So the request that I've been instructed by our financial department for the request to be the amount that is on there to cover any price differences. It is cheaper elsewhere. This is just the sample I am providing. So if you would like to support that, if not,
Would $200 to purchase a lectern be sufficient?
Yes, I will have to request this portable collapsible.
Does it have to be ADA compliant for us to purchase it? Inclusion.
I do not know the answer to that
I
question.
think you check on it first, because I don't want to buy something we throw out. I'm all for it, but I bring that up because.
Okay, the lectern that was in the conference center is not ADA compliant. So what we're planning for is
That's a good question to look into, but I think
we're planning for the round table to be right there, and it would sit on that. So that's
I'm fine. I mean,
and it
as
would
you see, like
just do the table.
Like in Arlington County, their courthouse, their hearing room, it's electric adjustable, it's thousands of dollars as opposed to the $200.
I would say all of the equipment that I've seen that the county currently has does not meet that requirement. So I don't think
I'm taking it to the state, but go ahead. That's fine. But I just want to make sure you ask that question.
yes, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB purchase an ADA compliant tabletop lectern with for not to exceed $200.
This was the one you wanted.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to that.
Okay.
To make certain that.
You can't amend the motion until it's seconded.
I need a second.
Is there a second on that motion?
I don't think you can find an ADA complaint lectern for $200.
That's not what I'm
Just so we can.
Seconded. Okay. Friendly amendment.
The amendment is to make certain that the county staff investigates that if it needs to be ADA compliant. Okay, I accept the friendly amendment. Seconder? Yes. Thank you, Mr.
That worked for you, Daniel.
Or yes.
Okay. Sorry. We have a motion on the floor with a friendly amendment. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Motion carries. All right. Business card order.
I've sent proofs to the people who have requested them. I'm ordering them next week. They will be ready before the March meeting. If anyone else would like them, please let me know. There's a template to choose from. And then I got a message as the meeting started that I need a motion to approve the renewal of the NAPC membership, which is $150.
Okay. I would recommend someone adapt the motion you see right here for approving an expenditure to make it a motion to.
Just to clarify quickly, that is included in the annual budget.
Yes.
Membership.
Mr. Burns.
I move that the ARB approve an expenditure of $150 for renewal of the National Alliance of Preservation Commission's organizational membership.
Second. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. There we go. Got you covered there, Daniel.
Thank you.
Any other administrative updates?
No, the next thing I have is under correspondence.
Okay, no discussion or updates. Correspondence, update on zoning cases.
Okay, very quickly, I was at the BZA the last two Wednesdays. Last Wednesday, SP 2023 MV 00042, which was a reduction in setback requirements for a deck at 7211 Rebecca Drive, was approved. That's the Nolan Barber residence that came to the ARB last year. So that was approved by the BZA. This past Wednesday, so yesterday morning, the Holland Hills Pickleball and Tennis Club special permit amendment and variance were both approved. That is moving forward. Next item I have is just a very quick update on the staff permit review process. We are continuing to meet with LDS and are implementing new workflows to catch as many permits as possible and make sure that Heritage Resources and review as late in the process as possible to ensure compliance and the permit plan set with what was approved by the ARB. So that is really all that I can say right now. We are actively working on it, but it's a multi-agency negotiation. So that is moving forward. And then I have a very quick, I will make it quick, few updates from the Heritage Resources branch. So we are planning to apply for 2 different CLG grants from VDHR for this grant cycle. Both applications were just released. The first is going to be a cost share grant, which will include a survey, National Register nomination, and an interactive component for Randall Estates, which is a mid-century African-American district in the Mount Vernon Supervisor District. It's near Holland Hills. This is a local district that was listed on the county inventory of historic sites last year. A property information form was already submitted and unanimously approved by VDHR in 2023. We have met with state staff, and they are very enthusiastic and supportive. There's a state momentum behind nominating and identifying African-American related sites. So
What was the name again?
Randall Estates.
Randall.
Does it need a letter of support?
Yes. So
You need me to write a letter of support?
yes, that is the short form. The History Commission voted last night to contribute a monetary support because it's a cost share. So DPD, the History Commission, are fronting the half that will then, the other half will be funded by VDHR when the grant is approved. We think it would be approved. So that is, and the due date for that is the end of March, Chris. And then
End of March? Question mark? I swear I was told March 1 last night.
I think Blake McDonald literally sent it out like 2 days. It's in sometime in March.
Okay.
So the History Commission committed funds to
The
it?
History Commission committed $7,500, which is approximately a quarter of the cost.
Okay. And then the county's putting out money for a portion of the cost?
7,500.
Okay. And then the state will cover the rest?
Yes.
Don't need our money this time.
Right, they're not asking for your
Okay,
money
you
this time.
need my letter this time.
Yes, the DPD needs a letter of support from the ARB that will go in the application package just to show that our.
So unless someone else wishes to write it, because I don't have familiarity with this.
I can provide a template and past examples.
Okay. I've written letter, but I don't have familiarity with this property in question.
Okay, I can provide.
That's my bigger problem. I could write a letter of support, but I'd like to try to dial it to the property I'm supporting.
I can share everything that we have.
Okay, perfect. All right, and whatever the deadline is, so I know what it is.
Okay.
Can you share it with me too?
I can share it with all of you if you'd like.
All right.
We don't know. There's currently not interest in a historic overlay district. It's more the nomination that route, and we're looking at interpretation and engagement as a component of the application. So that is kind of what the track is right now. But it seems like a pretty easily accomplishable National Register nomination, and we have support in the state.
Great.
And that would make homeowners there eligible for the Virginia State tax incentive credits.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then we're going to also be applying for a CLG grant, which that is not cost share, so the county will not have to pay any of it or any of the VACs. To host a camp training session that's put on by the National Association of Preservation Commissions. So the target date for that is fall 2024. We would be hosting the Northern Virginia contingent. So there's a lot of planning to do for that, but we just wanted to make you aware.
We get free attendance, or we got to pay for our board members' attendance?
I think we have to figure out.
We can use our $1,700.
The cost for the training, which would be reimbursed by the CLG grant, covers, I think, up to 30 participants, and then it's 25 ahead. So that's what we have to figure out. It's like what the number of attendants will be.
Okay.
So
you need a letter for that one?
Moving target. No letter because
I'd write you a letter for that one. I've always wanted to take camp training,
but I will let you know.
All right. Okay. Look into it. If you need it, I'll advocate for it.
We'll keep you.
There's enough CLGs in the surrounding area. It makes good sense to have here.
Yeah. So we responded within 15 minutes of the email asking for volunteers.
We would do without you, Daniel.
The other Heritage Resource Branch update is that several of our staff are involved in site-specific plan amendments resulting from the recent round of the process. And we are currently working on plan amendments for 4 substantial building or corporate campuses from what we have identified as, or calling the post-modern period, so post-mid-century modern. With that, that means that they are not 50 years of age, so it's a little bit of a tricky preservation evaluation. But these 4 properties are under consideration for redevelopment. The Atrium at 11250 Roger Bacon Drive, AT&T headquarters at 3033 Chainbridge Road, the ICF building at 9300 Hunters Branch Road, and the CIT building at 2214 Rock Hill Road.
The first one is my office.
You feel about it. That sounds familiar.
So there is not not an immediate plan, but they are on the county plan program for potential redevelopment. Yes.
I'm very familiar with several of those sites, and it's particularly the AT&T. And I was under the general impression, reading the press, that your colleagues have already given that site away.
Yeah, it is still early in the county plan process.
Really, because I just got the impression that it was going to be massively redeveloped.
There has been a lot of media coverage.
That's the round building, right? That's the
Yeah, it's the giant quadrant.
No. It's the building at 123 and Blake Lane or Germantown Road.
Yeah.
It was built around 1980-ish.
Yeah. So
It's surrounded by mountains of asphalt.
AT&T, like all the cities kind of have a building like that, right? No, okay.
This was a very large building that
Yeah.
AT&T
Yeah.
built.
Plan view, it's a round building.
And it's,
Other one on. That's she.
The CIT, that's the,
yeah, that's the one we've fought for before.
see it, Dulles.
okay, and that's half in Fairfax County and half in Loudoun County.
It is under consideration for.
No way, dude.
They've been talking about that forever.
But it's surrounded by acres and acres of trees.
I know, I don't get
It's a
that.
large
Well,
site.
we don't, we know more.
Yeah.
They've developed, Loudon's developed heavily out
Sure it's not a bunch of data centers now?
We have a data center.
So we just wanted it to put it on the ARB radar. Staff is working on them. I will update when I have more of an update.
But we don't have any control with that, right?
We are one of the review agencies and provide comments.
Just
but,
comments, but not approval. It's just,
I mean, it's not run through.
yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
But as always, we are advocating for preservation. So that is the short answer that I can provide. Last thing under admin is I already have 5 applications that have been pushed to March. So there is a very strong possibility of needing to use our first potential special meeting, which would be on Monday, March 18th in this room. So I will update everyone as soon as I know.
Daniel and I have made efforts to make sure we can only do one a month, but that's why we have it.
I know right now I will not be there in March. Or maybe, but that for sure that my wife has surgery on that day, so I will not be there for sure.
Send me an email so I can document approving it then.
It's recorded, but yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, the email.
Yes, I will. No problem. So,
Not that I won't approve it, but you know, I see better.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Get the proper lecture.
So that brings us to design guidelines, update projects. Tomorrow is when people have to get you comments by, correct?
Yes, that is preferred. The quick update I have is that we are meeting with Traceries tomorrow to start moving forward on next steps and formalizing that. I don't know if anyone has feedback right now or if you just want to email it to me. If there's any general discussion, I know we're tight on time, but.
I think some of the issues you already talked about with staff that you all have identified were the key things. I didn't have anything more that I didn't want to try to, I don't want to try to reopen these again and again, but I like that if there are fresh eyes that looked at them, that would think
I
be
was
the best
very
benefit.
impressed. More than just their documents, they're historic, so.
They're readable too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know whoever wrote them at Traceries, their name wasn't on it, just at ESG Traceries, but when you speak to them, I would say that they're really great.
Great team of 2 wonderful ladies, I think, at that time. But they're still at Traceries, I'm not sure.
The leads have been Sarah Vonish and Laura Hughes.
Yeah.
Meeting with tomorrow.
Laura Hughes.
But I don't know who else has been involved historically.
I think it's going to need a dedication or something in the front of it.
Okay.
So.
Yes, so I can send a reminder tomorrow, but if you have any comments, please
Yeah, if you have any comments, get them to Daniel now or forever hold your peace
incorporate.
for the public comment.
20
period.
years from now. though.
Yeah, 20 years from now, sure, you can bring them back up.
Not forever.
We will incorporate ARB comments into the staff round. That's the first round that we're targeting. They will go to public meetings, so there is another round for you to make comment before they come to you for approval. But we would like to tackle big changes, any final big changes now before we get to the meetings.
I think the board members are different.
Yeah, that is like
Yeah.
universal. That'll be the last thing that has changed when they adopt, because I don't know when they'll be adopted. So fortunately, I can't.
2024, we're aiming for, that's the goal. Okay, no other old business? Let's move on to new business. John and I will try to be quick because all these are Lake Ann things. There was a request from one of our prior applicants for an HVAC unit on top of her business at Lake Ann to come meet with her and several other business owners as well as members of the board of LARCA to talk about the HVAC issues facing Lake Ann due to the RALAC, their centralized AC situation. It continues to evolve. They actually just became a certified nonprofit just, 3 days ago, I think, that passed. So I don't even know what that means technically. So John and I went and had lunch with them that we paid for ourselves to not create any conflicts of interest. We walked the whole area. We went and saw the RALAC plant, which was the greatest condition as you can imagine. And we met with the treasurer and the secretary and the vice president of LARCA as well as one of the business owners and talked about a litany of different things. The history of RALAC is extremely complicated. The overlays of different folks that have utilized the system don't just include people who are in the HOD, properties who are outside the HOD, and then there are properties that aren't covered by LARCA, which is Lake Ann Condominium and Lake Ann Residents and Condominium Association. Yes, tons of acronyms we got thrown at us too, but that group doesn't even oversee all the buildings in the HOD, so there's several entities plus the more referendum that Reston Association has that requires them to use this centralized air system that is being voted on to potentially be revoked. That may happen by Reston. So it's complicated. And we talked about some of the challenges they've looked at. We saw some examples of good units put on. We learned about complicated history of the board and what feelings that people have about that. I won't go into details on that.
Those are saints for going.
Well, and then we also learned about solutions they were trying to look at because we'll talk in a minute. Samantha and Daniel attended a meeting that the supervisor hosted regarding various BZAs about what could we do to help assist this if they're going to have to tackle this issue to actually have folks have cooling in the summer. And the LARCA board members were also talking about that, including a temporary chiller installment that could potentially chill some of the buildings if they took them off the system. And what John and I basically advocated for is we'll be happy to work with them as soon as they have something, if the ARB's approval is needed, to bring it to us as soon as we can, because we don't want somebody sweltering in the heat, because we're talking about the Heron House, we're talking about, the J building, as well as several other buildings. And some of those have their own HVAC for medical exemptions or other exemptions, but most do not. So it's a challenge.
They do geothermal at all?
We didn't even ask that question.
Okay.
Well,
To replace whatever. Oh, sorry.
yeah, they're already using Lake Ann
Yeah.
The water.
as the coolant. Yeah, and it's out
Yeah.
kind of in the middle
That's
there.
for heat and everything, geothermal.
Yeah, we've learned a number of interesting things. There are overlapping jurisdictions there. Thank you for putting that map up. That shows you where the piping goes.
That's pretty.
That little circle with the dots in the top center is where the plant is. It's right by the tennis courts. And there are actually 4 chillers in there, and for most of the time, they really only use one. And each of those branches that goes out goes to a different cluster and different homeowner associations.
Other than all under Reston Association.
And then there's the overarching Reston Association. So it's very hydra-headed. And they're not talking to each other.
That's great.
And the original part of the Reston Association bylaws that says that people in those clusters have to sign up for this They're proposing to revoke, which means there'll be a free-for-all, and we could potentially have 600 applications
For air
heat pumps, right? And then on every balcony in Heron House is going to have one, you know.
By this summer.
Yeah, by this summer,
They're
by
gonna
this
start
summer.
Talking to each other, but
So,
the
you
weather
know,
changes.
Yeah, one secondary meeting this spring. We're going to have meetings every day.
I think we're gonna.
Anyway, it's a disaster kind of waiting to happen. They found out that this is a regulated utility, and because of that, they have to file with the State Department of Environmental Quality. And so they're able to find out all sorts of things about the operation of this chiller facility. You know, ownership, its infrastructure.
You were asking, I think, Gabrielle, you were asking like, so the original plant was operated and maintained roughly by Lake Ann.
Yeah.
And then the operators took over it and formed a cooperative. And those gentlemen, or good old boys who ran it, it's now no longer a sustainable system. But basically, there's a lot of lack of information that various entities don't even know, but we only spoke to a fraction of them too.
Yeah.
That was the,
So like a nightmare.
Yeah, it is literally a nightmare. The solution they're proposing is to get a big chiller on a trailer truck, you know, back it up close to the tennis courts and hook it up to the existing.
well, they weren't even,
for this coming summer. But now there's another group that's headed by someone who's in the Hickory cluster, which is across North Lake Shore, to turn it into a cooperative, and then we'd all have part ownership kind of a thing.
and apparently that's happened.
Oh, well, no, they got the cooperative set up. The other question is, will the other homeowner associations sign up for it?
I agree with your sentiment that I'd rather approve something big and ugly that's temporary while we work out.
Well, and John, I don't even think they were talking about doing it at tennis courts. The group that was talking to us said, we just want the LARCA section to be cool.
Well, yeah,
so they want to even.
There is, right. We recognize we talked to one of the heads of the hydro, you know, and we learned all of this stuff and our.
Well, there's another thing of, so you look at the map, the red is LACA area. The green is the Waterview cluster. The purple is a Hickory cluster. The yellow is Vantage Hill. That's a condominium. And then the pink one is Windwright. So the RELAC system supplies all this colored community. They are operate on their own. They have their own HOA. However, our HOD only include that red area. So if the chiller is outside of the red area, we don't. Great
Well, I
solution.
would actually be fine if it was outside the HOA. as a ARB member, not as a Restonian. But
I always regretted the narrowness of that HOD, but that might be a good.
well,
stamp
so
approval.
John, while John's walking up there, another thing they brought up to us was actually talking about expanding the HOD because we highlighted to them that the HOD expansions like that have to be a community-driven effort. That's not something that the ARB does.
It's literally outside. This is the tennis court, and here's the chiller over here.
He's in Reston.
It's just outside.
We both live in Reston.
But we're most fortunate similar buildings that we're reviewing, right?
And so, but they're also talking about, talking to the Waterview Cluster HOA and the Hickory Cluster HOA about expanding the HOD or having a new HOD to incorporate those two things. That's the Clotilde Woodward Smith complex and the Charles Goodman complex.
And another thing we did talk about that I think was promising is they are earmarking LARCA, the condominium association, is earmarking money to do a facade project on Heron House, which is the top tower. And John and I highlight to them, they talked about how they were using the right resources, the qualified engineer, they were getting someone who understood SOI standards. We encourage them to share that with us to help, even if it did not require was not going to require a building permit because they don't even think they're going to need scaffolding, but that we could help share input to make sure they make a wise decision here because they want to take out bad concrete repairs. But they kept talking about caulking, and that worried me. But we offered that information to get shared to us. I don't think it has to date been shared. I probably should do a follow-up on that.
I didn't get it.
But the idea is John and I tried to be as clear as possible that the ARB is going to want to work with them. We want Lake Ann to survive and thrive, and that is a challenge given all the infrastructure constraints they're facing. And to add to that, I then had a call the next week with the supervisor. He called me up because I missed the meeting that Sam and Daniel were on, and he wanted to talk to me anyways. And we talked about this meeting as well as the BAC meeting that happened. And again, I conveyed this is an HOD, so where our responsibility lies, we want to try to be as dynamic as we can. I mean, we even talked about ideas of, could you do temporary chillers for several of the components around here to at least prop up the system until a larger solution could happen. The real problem is, as John pointed out, it's a hydra. There's so many authorities laid on top of each other. You'd have to trap them in a room and make them fight it out almost.
Daniel could correct me when I'm not. So during that meeting, I do find that there are two pathways that parallel right now. One is the residents there, they try to push co-op and to run that central system, and that is on the private sector. Supervisor Alcon is on different pathway. He tried to, it makes me feel like he tried to be able to tell residents, if you don't like this central system, we have a pathway for you to put up AC system. You can get that done before summer comes. So that is, he tried to figure that out. And also on the other side, I think he tried to find, in case both scenario all fail, how he can protect the residents, like run a shelter or county help to rent out a portable AC unit to the people there.
It's important to remember that a large portion of those places are not in the HOD, so they wouldn't be coming to us. And there are already townhomes that they talk about have existing HVAC systems that probably violate the RA, the resident association requirements. And there are others that have exemptions. There are certain that have, so you get certain exemptions taken off the system. So it's a kaleidoscope of problems here. The problem particularly that we would have with Lake Ann is the J building and Heron House could not structurally support that type of construction. The building was not designed for the individual AC units. Like the solutions we've approved recently, yeah, they're not visible. They actually are doing, I think if they're done right, they could be fine, but you couldn't do that for every single, you'd be having structural concerns with the building, like particularly Heron House. So I expressed that to the supervisor that from our perspective, that I'd like a larger chiller solution for a single, the large tall building or something like that to take things off the grid. Those are ideas that we need to think about, because if you're talking about doing 1 million applications for individual solutions, it's just not going to be tenable, because from a structural perspective, let alone would this board approve it perspective. Right. So it was a fun trip, wasn't it, John?
One other thing they quoted Alcorn as saying to them in a group meeting was that one possible solution is voluntary condemnation of Lake Ann Center.
So for more context for the newer members here, there was a this was a question I was going to ask you about, Daniel. I didn't ask you about. So there was the structural study that was done by the county for Lake Ann that we then criticized for not having a proper historic preservation lens. We put up money, and then there was a angel donor that wanted to offer money. And then eventually, it's my understanding, and Daniel, this is what I wanted you to confirm, the county ended up just paying the bill using money set aside for a Lake Ann revitalization study.
I don't know the answer to that.
So we got conflicting opinions saying an outside entity paid for that effort or not. I thought the county finally put up the money to pay for a larger revitalization study at Lake Ann. That was a complicated study that Samantha and I both attended that had both residents as well as outside entities come and talk about how can we help Lake Ann become a revived place.
That was in the aftermath of the Florida collapse.
And there were,
Important
yeah,
context.
and there were very strong opinions at that meeting because you have residents who live and work there who don't want outside folks telling them what they should be doing. But you have some spaces owned by a resident association, some owned by a condominium association. And there were talks about could the county acquire portions of Lake Ann. And I think the word was friendly condemnation, actually. I think it was the word.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was, that's the first time I'd heard it when they brought it up, but it definitely is
Chilling.
Yeah, chilling. Okay, there's a way to capstone it there, John.
Bad word to use for and the issue, but
yes.
Even if they took the solution of putting individual units in all of them, then you would have to revamp the electrical system
Yes.
to handle it.
That was the avocado.
That was the other one that came up during that. Even if you did that, you'd break the load on the building. You'd have all.
And all those
Yes.
losses.
So it's a multi-layered problem that because it is in private ownership.
I like
Yeah.
that we eliminate the HOD in that. I'm just kidding.
Mind you, the reason this became an HOD back in 1976, when it was only like a decade old, was so that the county could put revitalization monies into it. Interesting.
Which they have multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, it's as a commercial venture, it's always been kind of marginal.
Yeah.
The grocery store that used to be there is now the community center, and the drugstore went away.
Well, and that's what the revitalization study produced results of. Is it's the end-all survey of it came out that it wanted to be both an attractive place that you wanted people to go to, but also not a like Tyson's Corner, like a huge draw. It needed to be kind of quaint at the same time of also being, and that's tough. You can't really.
And the initial county survey came out, I think, biased against saving or putting more investment in. And that's the one that came up with the $40 million price tag to bring it up to code. And when we pressured them to redo it with someone who was familiar with historic properties, I think it dropped to 10 million. I mean, it's just, so the county and all of this, I think, would love to redevelop this. They want another Reston Town Center, like Lake Ann Town.
They're waiting for it to fail.
Yeah, good point.
Well, and the revitalization study revealed that just what John and I talked about with Raylock, there are so many different entities that have a stake, including the community center has a huge stake there. So it's such a catalyst property that, so again, I conveyed to the supervisor that we're willing to work with folks if they want to come with ideas. They can come to workshops. We can come talk with them. They've got Samantha and I who are residences. We'll be happy to be there. They can come to workshops. We also have members of the board that can meet and talk with them. And as long as we don't bring more than two, it's not a meeting. And so we tried to be as helpful as possible. Unlike Mount Gilead, where no one came to talk to us, we went to them. So there we go. All right, that's all I have for new and other business. John, you got any other new business?
No, I'm talked out.
Okay. Oh, Joe's got new business.
This is from a personal note here. Our neighborhood has an old grist mill of the 1700s along Sandy Run station. The owner is one of my neighbors. He's in his 80s. He'd like to have the county protect this. And this is an open question. I don't know the answer. He said, how can I have the county take this under their wing to protect it? It's not in a historical district, but it's the foundation of the old grist mill. Those grist mill things, there's a lot of history in it. It's written up in a county book that talks about these grist mills along the area that put stuff to Occoquan. And we're close to the Occoquan, so therefore, story says is farmers did their grain there, and then they shipped it on barge down to the Occoquan. There is old horse trails there that you can see where it's actually, the roadbed is down, and there's the old grist mill. What's there is the foundation and stones and so forth. So any advice, I'm welcome to that. He just wants to somehow make it public, accessible, but not getting destroyed because, it's in an area of the county which, bootleggers get their nose. But the bottom line is any advice? I'm looking at Ms. Murray because...
I was thinking the county would be difficult. I was thinking Northern Virginia.
Whatever.
Conservation Trust.
Yeah, the Conservation Trust.
The Scott guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, Scott Klein?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's really, as you
It doesn't
said,
need any maintenance, it just wants
But
someone just.
when anything comes to us that's not an HOD, it's something that's under
No.
easement or conservation trust
They
thing.
think the, what's called the Fairfax County Conservation.
Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia
Conservation
Trust.
They're
Thank you.
they're a county partner, and the easements have the most teeth
Yes.
to protect.
It's the same partner.
Somebody that comes see house. Thank you. Yeah, the house on the plan that we left.
Yeah.
Where's Russ?
Scott,
Yeah.
is on that? Is that the deal?
No,
Okay.
he worked with them previously.
Okay, yeah, but if you can give me the contact so I can.
Did we meet with Scott? Was that the man we met?
We met with Matt Gerhart.
Okay, thank you, yeah. Thank you, that's all I
All
have.
right, if there's no other new business, I'm happy that we have all our new members in one room at the same time, so I'm glad to have you all here together. New members.
Yeah.
So I'm glad all three of you are here in the same place, so welcome.
Welcome.
We're glad to have you all here. Beyond that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? Oh, okay.
Everything was well.
Yeah, me too.